Hello and welcome to the Stubzcast. The Stubzcast, the Content Creator Hub podcast, is where I talk to other content creators about their journey into content creation. And it's all about sharing tips and tricks in the community. Also, if you'd like to check out www.pg4ghub.com, it's a cool new gaming website. This week I have Techno Fabulous from NLG. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing wonderful, Stubz, and I'm really excited to be on here this evening. Been real excited to get on here. You had a little problem with your internet a few weeks ago, and you got that resolved. So I'm happy about that. And I really thank you for allowing me to come on and chat with you about some games.
Oh, most definitely. It'd be fun. Right, I'll give people an introduction to Techno Fabulous, aka John Place. Techno Fabulous, Mr. John Place, is a beloved member of the gaming community. John is a great member of the NLG, the original Next Level Gaming podcast, which is an awesome bunch of people which are part of the amazing Gamers Guild for the incredible support and be supported movement. John is what you call a true gamer, multi-platform with a strong opinion for gaming. His passion also extends to game reviews with his great Techno Fabulous website. What do you reckon to that then? Do you like it?
Yeah, that was wonderful. That's more than I deserve. Thank you.
Yeah, I try and write them because a lot of people tend to do that now.
Oh yeah.
Welcome, Daz. Welcome, VJ. Welcome, Mass Mayhem. Thanks for stopping by. Yeah, cheers, Daz. I've hit 200 subscribers finally. For the second time, I got to 200 techno, and I lost about 8 to 10 subscribers. Now I'm back at 200 again.
Oh no. Well, we'll see if we can. Maybe I know I'm not on camera tonight, but I could do a little strip tease later. Maybe that'd bring a few more guests to the show.
You never know.
Yeah.
So what got you in? So what's your gaming history then?
Oh my God!
I know it's a long one.
It's a long one. Well, Stubz, I'll call you Stubz or Stubzmeister because I kind of like that. But I'll just call you Stubz. Yeah. My gaming history, I'm 48 years old, or I'll be 48 this year. About 40 years ago, I started with my gaming career. Back, I guess it would go all the way back to the Atari 2600. Nice. Probably around, the console launched in 1977, I believe. I believe that my family got our first Atari 2600 probably in 1979. And, it's just, that's where it all started, was the Atari 2600. I mean, that was the console at the time. I mean, it was affordable. It had a huge library of games. And the one thing about it that was great about that console is that my parents even could game with me at the time. My mom was a big Pitfall and River Raid fan. So I remember at an early age playing Pitfall and River Raid with my mom. And you had those stupid alligators that you had to jump on their heads to get across the river. And there was a certain spot on the alligator's head, right where their eyeball was. You had to kind of land right on that to jump across. But, and of course, River Raid. And that's Stubz. That's kind of where it all began, was the Atari 2600. I'd have kids come over in the neighborhood and we'd play and we'd game for hours. And that's kind of how it all started for me.
It's definitely good, the Atari. I'll be honest, I will say that I've never played the console, so but everyone brings it up, so it must be good.
Oh, it was. I mean, you had games like some of my favorite games were like Pac-Man. Of course, the Atari 2600 Pac-Man version is nothing like the arcade version, but it was enough to satisfy the urge to play Pac-Man. But they had games like River Raid, Pitfall. Yar's Revenge was one of my favorites. Asteroid, Centipede, Combat, all those type of games, Missile Command. And I mean, those were games that I played for hours. And even back in the day, you had the joystick which I guess we'll get into controllers later since everybody's controller crazy. But I think the joystick was like the ultimate controller, man. You had the one stick, the one button, the one joystick to rule them all, and I have fond memories of that joystick.
Do you still own one?
I actually do. It's funny. It's actually at my mom and dad's house. They kept it. When my wife and I moved into our house last year, I have an original Atari 2600. I also have an original Commodore 64 computer, and my mom and dad, they have it at their house. Yeah. So I have both of those. Yeah.
You'd be surprised now. I have actually played a Commodore 64 because at one point when I was a kid, I don't know how I couldn't buy it, but I had a Commodore 64. It wasn't because they weren't out when I was a kid, but I had one and I paid. Correct me if I'm wrong. You put the tape in and you played off the tape, yeah?
You could, and it
a
also
game called Mr. Angry. That's all I remember is Mr. Angry. A game called. I liked it,
Right. Oh wow. What's funny is I don't remember that game. I do have a little story to tell about the Commodore 64, though. When I was growing up, my parents, I kind of came from a middle income family. And so my dad worked, my mom stayed at home with me and my brother and raised us. But when I was younger, we had money, but we weren't rich by any means. So I wanted to get a computer. So I actually got a paper route, an afternoon paper route and a morning paper route, both. And I would deliver papers before I went to school and after I came home from school. And I saved up money, and the Commodore 64 was actually the first computer I bought with my own money. And at the time, since I was just a kid, and it took a while to save up money, I bought the keyboard first. On the back of the keyboard, you actually had a cartridge slot. And you could buy cartridge games for that. And what I did is I plugged that keyboard into a little 13-inch color television set with an antenna. And I would buy the computer magazines and I would look at the source code information in the back, and you could type all that in and you could actually type in games and then play them later on. The only downside of that is that in the back, there were some errors once in a while. And so when you'd go to play your game, of course, you'd run into some trouble. And sometimes you'd have to wait for the magazine to be edited and the corrections being made. But I tell you what, that was the best thing that ever happened to me, Stubbs, because early on in life, my parents taught me to work hard if I wanted something, and they instilled that in me. And still today, I'm the same way. So I was very proud of that computer. I mean, I bought the keyboard, then a few months later, I bought the monitor, and then I actually got the floppy disk drive eventually. And, the Commodore was just an amazing computer at the time. And it was really good for games. It just brings back good memories. And they even had a GEOS 2.0 disc it was kind of like an operating system that they came out for a little bit later on. But there were some memorable games that I played for hours on there. It was just an amazing game. Games like summer games and the winter games, even California games and world games.
I played that. That's another one I had. The winter games. I do remember that one.
That's a good one. That's one you got the cross country skiing, Stubbs.
That's it. Yeah.
Yes, and but they had games on there, and I'd have friends come over in the neighborhood, and we'd play, and we played for hours. And I mean, one of my fondest memories was the Dr. J versus Larry Bird game. And that was a basketball game 1-on-1. And you could actually break the backboard if you went up for a slam dunk.
Nice.
And these games, if you look at them now, they may look a little primitive. Actually, I picked up the Commodore 64 Mini because I was such a huge fan. And they've got quite a good collection on the Mini. But I mean, there were games like Zorro Zorro was amazing. Zorro was very difficult. You're slashing your little sword, you're jumping through the levels, killing enemies. And they didn't really give you too much direction on that game. you just started playing, and very difficult game, but man, what memories,
Well, it's definitely a good story. I mean, it taught you to the value of money. It did.
And I'm still that way. Like
That's good.
the guys on NLG joke with me, Stubz, and they call me the console hugger because I like to buy about every piece of plastic that comes out. I love gaming. I love consoles, but that work, the way my parents instilled working to buy things in me, that I still have that with me today. And even today, I take care of everything I own. I mean, everything's in mint condition. I keep things nice and clean. And you have to respect, all the hard work that goes into that, saving up for things like that.
Oh, most definitely. Let's do a few shout outs. A few more people came in. Welcome, Tyrus. Welcome, C-Script. Welcome, Super Cooper. Welcome, ACS Husk. And welcome, Dreadpool. Thanks for stopping by.
Awesome, man. Awesome.
So I seen you put up a little arcade machine with Ghost and Ghouls. So you were really into the arcades, were you? Did you used to go regular when you were a kid?
Oh, yes. When I was a kid, the arcades was where it was at. I mean, growing up, you either had the Atari, the ColecoVision, or the Intellivision, or maybe even all three.
Yeah.
And other than that, you had the arcades. And the arcade experience is really where you had those awesome graphics. And I remember as a kid going to the arcade with my friend. We'd go up there with some quarters, and we'd spend hours in the arcade. But I remember back then thinking, man, will we ever have graphics at home like we do in the arcades?
Yeah.
And, fast forward 40 years, and now the graphics we have at home way surpass the arcade. But back in the day, the arcades were the cat's meow. Meow. Yeah,
Yeah, but I still feel that with like arcades, I mean, like the kids coming through now thinking a lot of these graphics. I just wish that all of them could be shown what games used to be like and what they are now, and they'd be shocked.
Oh, they would be, Stubs. And it's funny though, even though we've advanced so much, I still look back as a kid growing up and we had an arcade called Aladdin's Castle that wasn't too far from where I lived.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And I'd go in there and I'd take my paper out money. We'd go in there and spend our quarters, and we'd hang out in there. But man, the thing about the games back then, they were fun. And I'm not saying that the games that we play now aren't fun. I'm just saying there was something special years ago about playing those games when they first came out. And sometimes, even though we have the real pretty graphics with all the bells and whistles, we don't capture that fun gameplay that we used to have when we were growing up.
Yeah, no, you're right. Because sometimes you can have all the good graphics in the world, but the developer hasn't put all the pieces together to make it what you call a great experience.
Right?
Because a lot of them are under pressure to release the game. Come on.
Oh yes.
So, were you a Sega guy or a Nintendo guy?
Oh, well, here's early on. I guess you would have to say I was more of a Nintendo guy. What's funny, when I first got into Nintendo, I was playing on my Commodore 64, and I've got a younger brother who's 5 years younger than me.
Okay.
And his name's Jimmy. And one Christmas, I decided I got some Commodore 64 games that I asked for. Well, my brother asked for the Nintendo Entertainment System. And so he got the NES. Well, after we unwrapped our presents, I went to his bedroom and he was laughing and having fun. Well, he got the NES with the Duck Hunt and, Rob the Robot. And he was playing like games like Rygar and Castlevania on that system. And I kind of started watching that, and I thought, man, I love my Commodore, but I thought this Nintendo's not too bad. So I ended up with Christmas money. I went out and got a Nintendo as well. But growing up, I was a huge Nintendo fan. Legend of Zelda, one of my all-time favorites, the first Zelda. Love that game. When that game came out, that was a huge hit. When I went around collecting money on my paper route for my customers to pay for me delivering the papers, there were older couples, married couples, that I'd go to collect in the evening to get my money and open the door, and they're playing Zelda, on the Nintendo. Nintendo was huge, And of course, games like Castlevania and Contra. Contra was I'm a huge Contra fan, Castlevania fan, especially the first two Castlevanias. The first one, I think the second one is Castlevania Simon's Quest, I believe.
Okay. I have tried them games, Castlevania.
All right.
I am terrible.
But I was a huge, of course, when you're young, the thing that's different now that I have a great job and my wife and I both work and, I make good money. So now I have the freedom to buy kind of whatever I want or to invest in different companies, and buy the games. When you're young growing up, you don't have quite as much, you're kind of limited at the time unless you have a small job on the side, you're kind of limited to what your parents get or what your grandparents get you during give you for the holidays or birthday money. So things have changed. When I was a kid, you just kind of waited until you were given, some games or bought some games or you had some little extra cash,
Oh,
so it was a little harder to have multiple systems when I was younger.
Yeah, I mean, I know what you're saying, because even though I'm married and everything, I still only have the one.
Oh, happy anniversary, by the way, Stubbs.
Oh, yeah, thanks.
10 years. It's amazing. That's wonderful.
It is, I mean, I can't believe I only put that tweet up, nothing special on it. And I tell you what, I must have got over 5,000 people looked at it, impressions. I've never had so many retweets and likes. So, I appreciate everyone that said that, wish me congratulations. And thanks, John, for that.
Oh, you're welcome. Very proud of you. Congratulations.
Yeah, it's what Daz said. Congratulations to you, Stubbs. Congratulations to the wife. Right. And that's exactly what I'd expect if he got me a card. He'd put it in it.
Yeah, but what's funny? The question you asked, I guess I was thinking back on it. Yeah, I was more of a Nintendo guy, but like I said, as a kid, you're kind of limited. It's not like you've got all this money. So unless you came from a really wealthy family that bought you everything,
well, I tell you what,
most kids didn't have every console.
Oh, definitely. When I was growing up, we had the Sega Mega Drive. Now, here's the funny thing, right? My dad would buy me it, yeah. Well, when it came to bedtime, we'd have to bring it down the stairs and bring the little TV down so he could play it all night.
Oh, yeah. The good old days.
Yeah.
Hey, you did what you had to do,
Yeah. Yeah, that was always funny, that was.
Oh, my friend's original Next Level Gaming's in here. That's probably my buddy Mike.
That's probably Mike Mullers.
Yes.
Yeah.
My fearless leader and confidant.
And also, I think I've seen Stinking Corpse comment. Welcome, Stinking Corpse. Yeah, it's good that a lot of people have turned out tonight.
But I mean, you feel free to ask me anything, Stubbs. But I guess, early on it was the Atari, then the Commodore 64, and then, of course, the Nintendo consoles. Eventually, I branched out into the Sega Saturn and then went to the Sega Dreamcast. I've got a big story about that. Yeah. So
the Dreamcast. You got any stories about the Dreamcast then?
Well, actually, it kind of started with the Saturn, because it's funny because today even though I game on all the platforms, my preference would probably lie on the PlayStation console. But there was a time when I actually hated PlayStation, and it all had to do with Sega. I was much younger at the time, but the Sega Saturn was out, of course, and you had the PlayStation 1, and they were both 32-bit consoles. And I really got into Sega. I loved the Saturn console, but the problem, they had two chips trying to communicate at the same time, and it was a little more difficult to program for. And the PlayStation 1 kind of came on the scene, man, and it went gangbusters. And there were some games that looked great on the Saturn, but there were a lot of games that looked really, really good on the PlayStation, and it just took off. And Saturn was kind of in a bunch of trouble, and so PlayStation was kind of an enemy of mine early on. And of course, then the Dreamcast came out, and that was a wonderful system because it was well ahead of its time. I mean, you could get online.
That is one thing
for it.
They don't get enough praise for. Everyone brings a bit online and how Xbox all this and that, but Dreamcast were the ones that first brought it out to gamers. They don't get no credit for it.
Oh, and the thing that I loved about the Dreamcast, I own 2 Dreamcasts right now. And I still own them, and I've got tons of Dreamcast games. But the thing that I like about it is the system was compact, but it was solid. It had the 4 controller ports in front. You could play online. I even bought the keyboard. I remember it was the first time my brother and I actually went online and played NFL 2K, which is one of my favorite football games. And at the time, that game was just awesome. And to be able to play online with my brother, and there was a little bit of lag, it wasn't perfect, but at that time it was well ahead of anything else out there. And of course, the console was the life of it was kind of short-lived. I loved it, but it just kind of faded out, but it all started with the Saturn, I think, and a bad launch with the Saturn. Of course, the price of the console going up against the PlayStation when they dropped the $299 price, it just killed things. And it kind of broke my heart because I was a huge Sega fan. I mean, you had games like Sega Rally Championship, Hydro Thunder, Virtua Fighter, Crazy Taxi, Ready to Rumble. I mean, who didn't love those games? Those were all amazing games. And Stubbs I think the Dreamcast probably had one of the best, if not the best, launch lineups of games ever. And I remember when I picked my Dreamcast up day one and came home, and I bought all the launch games, so it was a phenomenal console,
Yeah, no, the Dreamcast that's definitely, because when you ask people, the majority of people, they do say they love the Dreamcast. And you don't get many people say, "Oh, I don't like the Dreamcast."
It's kind of funny. I feel real bad though because I had a hatred for Sony because I blamed Sony for Sega failing, and that's not the reason Sega failed. Sega failed because Sega made some stupid decisions, and I took it out on PlayStation, and I vowed that I'd never buy a PlayStation. I mean, for years I wouldn't touch a PlayStation console because of what happened to Sega, but it wasn't PlayStation's fault, and of course, fast forward, we've had a similar thing, back with the Xbox One launch in 2013, and I love both the Xbox and PlayStation, but it's here again, it's not the PlayStation's fault. It was Xbox and some of the decisions they made, It
was. You're right.
And that's coming from a guy that I love Xbox. I love Halo, Gears, the games, but I was blaming Sony for everything. It wasn't that. It was Microsoft that made some bad decisions, back in 2013. Very reminiscent of why I had the hatred for PlayStation when Sega ran into trouble,
No, you are completely right. They made some big mistakes to do. I mean, you like you said, you just said you liked Gears, but then if you bought an Xbox One, there was no Gears of War you could play.
Right.
You had to go back to your 360.
Right.
There wasn't any big launch line. You know what I mean? There wasn't. Yeah.
But one thing I've realized through all these years, Stubbs, the one thing that I pride myself in, and even and it's real hard with social media now, because you get on and social media can be so great because you can communicate with people, you can meet great people like you. I can talk to and meet new friends from like the UK and from all over the world, from Japan, China, Australia. I can and meet new friends, which is wonderful. But then there's a downside, because there's this, I don't know, a lot of gamers today, man, there's just a lot of bad vibes, and there's a lot of bad mojo, like on Twitter, a lot of arguing and bickering and the console warring and things like that. So, and that's a huge negative. But one thing I've learned throughout all the years in my 40 years of gaming, I mean, I really just like playing the games, and I think it's very important that you just be yourself, man. If you just be yourself and you're honest and you show support for other gamers and you play games, people are either going to like you or they don't like you. But being yourself is the best thing that you can do. Just being yourself as a gamer.
Oh, most definitely. Welcome, Indy. How you doing? Always calling you Spicy John.
Oh, I love Indie Gamer, man. Oh yeah, the Spicy John. I love that. Yeah.
Ring Pops John.
Yeah. That's for a little later in the show. Yeah.
So I know you're quite into these special editions, buying these special edition games with the the collector's items. And what's your favorite one of them, and why do you like buying them? Because you're quite into them. You buy quite a few of them.
Well, it's the weirdest thing in the world. Back when the Xbox One launched in 2013, I purchased my day one edition.
Yeah.
And of course, at that time, very quickly with the PS4 and especially the Xbox One, we were all into this digital all of a sudden, where we were having to buy external hard drives, and buying digital games started becoming really big. Well, I bought hundreds and hundreds of Xbox games. I've got hundreds of PS4 games digitally, and there was a time where I thought, oh, this is cool, man. Hard copies take up space on the shelf, and I can just have my digital library. Everything's in one spot. I can just click on it and play. And I thought, this is fantastic. But, then I've kind of reverted back a little bit lately, because even though as great as that is, there's something cold about it, man. And I know Mike, he always jokes with me and calls me the console hugger. But there's something I still, from growing up as a little kid and all the consoles I've owned and played throughout the years, there's something that just feels right about having something tangible, a game in your hand, and these collector's editions are awesome, man. I love putting my statues on display. Of course, there's a lot of neat things in these special editions that you just can't find anywhere else. And so I guess you could say I'm somewhat of a collector, as well as not only a gamer, but I also love collecting memorabilia, anything to do with it, and especially the games that are really important to me. Games like God of War, Days Gone, The Last of Us 2. Those games are like epic games, that come along, and I'm hoping that maybe in one of the new Halo games, like Halo Infinite or something, I'm hoping that they have some kind of collector's edition. But on the games that I know I'm going to love and play, I have no problem paying that extra money and getting the statues and all the extra content. I'm like a big kid, and I love it. Yeah.
No, it's really nice. You are right, because although digital is great, and I'm actually on that side, it makes you wonder, in a few years' time, will you be able to play all them digital games? I know everyone's gone about the digital carries over from generation to generation, but what if something goes wrong or a developer pulls a game? It's gone. Right. Because they could just make it not work. They say to Xbox or PlayStation, right, can you make this game not work no more? And they can. just disable it. And you've got a disc there. They can't really. If you've got a disc,
right?
You can just play it, can't you? Can't stop you.
In some cases, but there are some older games that I think even if you have the disc or something, like there might be online elements of the game that you can't access anymore, play. But I still like the physical though in a way because it still brings back memories. Like I can look up on my shelf and I can see my old Xbox 360 games, and there's just something I like having. I can see my Dreamcast games, and right now I'm in collector mode too. I've been buying games in mint condition. I've been stocking up on my Dreamcast games. I've got 2 Dreamcast consoles. I've got my old Xbox 360 Slim, so I've been buying some games, and there's some consoles that I still want to get. I never owned a GameCube, so I've been thinking about purchasing that. But there's something about, we talked about this actually on Next Level Gaming, and me and Frankie and Mike and the guys. And even though that some of these games, even if you own the hard copy and for some reason can't play them, I still like the fact that I own that game. That's something that I treasure. It's something that's a collectible that I never want to get rid of. It's a part of my gaming history. And with digital, you just don't have that. You've got digital's nice, but it's kind of a cold feeling. I like having my physical copy still, especially on real important games that matter to me.
That's good to hear. So what would you say this might be quite a hard question for you. So what would you say out of your entire collection of statues and everything, what would you say would be your most favorite item? Or is that too hard? or your top 3?
That's really hard, Stubbs, because see, I've got I've got this weird thing about me. The kids used to mess with me. Like when I was gone at work, when the kids were still living at the house, I'd come home from work and I'd have all my statues just in pristine, condition. And I had them posed just right. And I had them in certain places. Well, the kids, before I got home from work, they'd turn it like 10 degrees. A statue, or they'd switch spots, or kind of lay one over on its side, And of course, I'd come home, and the minute I stepped in that door, man, my gaming sense went off, and I knew something was wrong right away, and it was the kids messing with me. So I don't know that, like, all of them are kind of my favorite, man. They all have, I can't say that I have one particular one that's most special. I like having it because it's a constant reminder of games I played, and it brings back memories, especially like we talked earlier before the show. I'm going on 48 years old. So you start to forget some things. So sometimes you look around and you're like, oh, wow, there's that Crash Bandicoot statue. I remember that game. I remember that, and it just brings back memories. I love having them.
Yeah, no, I did think it would be a bit of a hard question for you to answer, because you've got too many.
Right.
But I could just imagine you walking in. So, something's gone wrong. Something's up. What is it? They've moved it in.
I'm real particular about everything. Like I said, everything's spotless, clean. So the kids, they know that about me. So they'll mess with me, and they like to hide my games and do things. And, it makes life miserable for me, but it's for their enjoyment. So.
But no, I mean, I don't really buy physical anymore, but I do have statues though. I've got some Gears of War figures I have, and believe it or not, I bought them off a car boot sale. And my missus says it's 15 quid. So I went on my phone and looked up on eBay. I said, "You'll buy it." She's what? I said it's worth 90 quid. And they were selling it for 15 quid.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and I got a few other Gears ones, but they're the ones I used to collect wrestling figures as well. I got rid of a lot of it though, but I used to collect them.
My friend Dave Dahl would love to hear that. He's like a pro wrestler on the lower level, and he's trying to make it big time, and he's trying to get into video games right now. So
I know I heard him on the NLG. I watched that show.
Oh, he's relentless. He just doesn't stop. I mean, they're going to put him in a wrestling game just because he's bugging everybody so much.
Oh no, he's persistent though, isn't he?
Oh, he is. He won't quit. He won't give up.
Well, that's the way you got to be. He's obviously,
Right.
in wrestling, it might not work. I think but hopefully it does work for him.
Right.
Even if he's DLC, he's still being a game, wouldn't he?
That's right. Even if he's DLC, that's going to be monumental for him. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. That will be in his portfolio forever.
What would really though make him angry is if they made me DLC before him. If they put me in as like a ref or a trainer, that's what I'm going for right now.
Oh, definitely. That would be funny.
Right. I've always wanted to be in a video game. It'd be great.
Yeah, you want to press on with it.
Right.
Start your campaign. Try and get in the game. Yeah. Welcome, Mr. Tushi, and welcome, Matt Barnes. And I've got to do something now because I lost a bet with Mr. Tushi. We were having a joke bet where we said who would get to 700 followers quicker, and he won. So here it goes. Battletoads. I'm terrible at it. Do you want to have a go?
Oh no.
Well, Xbox says it a lot, doesn't he?
Yeah. Was that your Battletoads cry?
Yeah, I'm terrible at it. Battletoads. I can't do it. What do you reckon to that game anyway? Did you like the original Battletoads?
You know what's funny? I was never a big Battletoads guy.
No.
It's just, it's, and it's funny. There's so many games that have come out through the years, you just can't possibly get around to everything. Battletoads was a game that I just never really, I don't know. It just never really interested. I never got into it. I mean, I might like it if I played it, but I was never a big Battletoads fan.
Oh, that's fair enough. There's plenty of games. There's too many games out there. I would say now, each year, there is far too many games coming out.
Oh yeah,
there is, and sadly, a lot of the little indie titles that are actually very good get missed out. But there is our good friend Mr. Indie Gamer who is there to tell you which games to play. On his channel.
he's Indie Gamer's wonderful. Yeah, great content creator, and you're right, Stubbs. It's like now I'm playing on the Switch, I'm playing on the Xbox, I'm playing on the PlayStation, I dabble on the computer a little bit. So you've got all those platforms and these games are just popping out left and right. And I can't even keep up with the games that are coming. And then you've got your indie game titles that deserve, to be paid attention to, but there's only so much time in the day,
exactly.
And somebody has to work to pay for all this stuff. And that's me. So,
oh, definitely,
it's real difficult, but you're right. The indie games, I've played some tremendous indie games that I absolutely love, that are just as good as some AAA games. And then I've played some other that I would that are kind of shovelware too, though, to be, there's some other titles out there though that you're just spending your money and I'm like, wow, why did I pay for that?
Oh, most definitely, especially with a lot of these. I'm not saying it's every big AAA game, but a lot of them have all this marketing behind them. Then you actually buy it and you're like, is this it? You know what I mean?
Right.
It's full of bugs, It's a big part of today's problem. It is these big games that release with bugs, and it's just acceptable, apparently.
Right.
So yeah.
On the flip side of that, Stubbs, though, I've never a while back, I saw on Twitter, there was a big deal about somebody mentioned about games being too big and blah, 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 and of course, sometimes you have to, it's real hard for me because I'm passionate. Sometimes things happen on Twitter. We'll talk a little bit later about the controller debacle, but there was a statement made, something about these games being too big and they need to make them smaller and they're costing too much and blah blah blah, and I just really disagreed with that, and the whole reason why I have friends, including myself, that have played some multiplayer games, for example, Like take Destiny, for example, or Call of Duty or Battlefield. People sink thousands of hours into these online games or Fortnite, So I don't really buy the fact, when somebody complains about single player games being too big, I'm like, they're not too big. I mean, these same people are spending 2,000-3,000 hours shooting the same people on the same maps over and over and over. So, so I'll never complain about a big game. After all, I mean, it is our money we're paying for. If I'm paying $60, $70 for a game, I have no problem with a lot of content. And of course, growing up and going back to the Commodore 64 thing, when I was younger and playing on the Commodore 64, I got hooked on the Bard's Tale games, and those are classic RPGs. But at the time, they didn't even have mini maps, so I would have to buy graph paper. And as I was going through the dungeons, and you go forward or turn right or turn left, you would have to map out the dungeons as you went along. But I spent hours upon hours playing that game and just had total enjoyment of that. And that was just a single player game. And that's, even now, as great as multiplayer is, I still think I'm more of a single player guy. There's nothing better than coming home after a hard day's work and turning on your console of choice or your computer and getting into a game, a great RPG that's going to take you hundreds of hours, where you feel like you're actually the hero or you're the character. It's like reading a great book. So, I mean, I like those kind of games. And, so I will never complain about a game being too big. That's just absurd, but.
Oh, most definitely. I agree with that statement. Welcome, Graphic God. Thanks for stopping by. Yeah, the indie game we just mentioned, because when you mention indie games, I normally bring up the game Edith Finch. I absolutely love it. I try not to bring it up. Then the indie game and put the Stubzcast sponsored by Edith Finch. It's because he recommended it to me one time. And I rated it very, very high, like 9.5 high.
Right. Well, there's some great indie games that I've played that have great storylines, or they're full of emotion. Or, I mean, can even make you shed a tear, and that are just wonderful. And then you got other games like on the PS4, there was one called My Name is Mayo, where all you do is tap a mayonnaise jar. Yeah, it's an easy platinum. I always joke around about that being my blood.
There you go. Games, Get that game, mate. Get that game. Get your gamer score up. Get a PlayStation.
That's right. Daz, you got to get My Name is Mayo. All you do is click on a mayonnaise jar, and the trophies just unlock. Within 20 minutes, you've got a platinum. It's wonderful. It empowers you. It makes you feel really important. It's just wonderful. My Name is Mayo. Oh yeah.
We need a campaign. We need it on Xbox One. Come on, let's get the petition going.
Oh yeah.
Crazy. It is crazy. So going back to the arcades, what would you say was your favorite game in the arcades?
Oh, my number one game, Galaga.
Oh, okay.
Galaga was my favorite game. I remember I have a fond memory of going to see Superman. I think it was the one with Richard Pryor. I think that's Superman 3. I was younger at the time, but it had Richard Pryor in it. I believe it was Superman 3. But
yeah,
I was waiting for the movie to start, and the arcade was next door. And I went over there, of course, and Galaga was the machine I'd always go to. That was like my go-to game, man. It was easy to pick up and play. It wasn't too complicated. You felt like you got your bang for your buck. You put your quarters in. It was not like Dragon's Lair where you put in like $1, and you were dead within 10 seconds. You could actually put in, some quarters and play Galaga. Galaga was one of my favorite stubs. Also, nice. Smash TV. Smash TV was wonderful. I love that game. I did like the Dragon's Lair game, although it was very costly to play that. Miss Pac-Man. I always preferred Miss Pac-Man over Pac-Man.
So what's the difference then?
Yeah. Over Miss Pac-Man?
Yeah.
Oh, it's got better fruit, Stubbs.
Oh, okay.
Oh yeah, it's got prettier boards. Like
Okay.
Pac-Man, it's just it's got some variation in the boards, but Miss Pac-Man really had it going on. I mean, you had better fruits, different colors, the design of the boards were awesome. Miss Pac-Man, I give that the edge over Pac-Man.
I'll have to try it out.
Yeah.
Definitely. Sounds good. It does. Most definitely. So, what controller is your favorite?
Yes. Ooh.
And also, extending on to that question, would you like to play the said favorite controller? Do you think you should be entitled to play it on the PS5 or Series X?
Okay. Here, since this is going to be like Spicy John Unplugged tonight, I'm just going to give my honest opinion on all this stuff because we're all gamers. And as long as I respect everyone and everybody's opinions, everything's okay. So, favorite controller, that's a tough one because down throughout the years, and I'm going to kind of combine this with this controller idiocy we've had lately about, the having to buy, use the PS5 controller at the PS5 games. From the very beginning of console gameplay, when a new console came out, it usually had a different controller. I mean, if you look at the NES system to the Super NES to the Nintendo 64 to the GameCube, they were all different. And you didn't play one, controller on the other console. When a new console came out, you use that new controller. Now, down through the years, I've played so many consoles. Like, I always hear arguing, like, if you get on Twitter, everybody's like, well, I like the analog sticks, symmetrical, across them, or other people will like them asymmetrical.
Yeah.
And it's funny, they'll argue about that over and over. And to be honest, I mean, ever since the joystick with the one stick and one button, every controller I've ever picked up, I've been able to use and play with no problem. So I don't know. I don't know if I've got a favorite controller. For a while, I thought that the Xbox 360 controller, very comfortable controller, and I like that one. I thought that the Xbox had a very comfortable control, and I liked that. Then I got used to when I got the PlayStation, and to be honest with you, my PlayStation 4 was actually my first PlayStation console, and I started playing with the DS4, and it didn't take me long to pick up on that, and that became my favorite controller. When the Xbox One came out, the controller is a little bit different on the Xbox One than the 360. The right and left bumpers are real close together, and I've got big hands. So when I'm hitting my right and left bumper, my fingers are hitting each other. So the DS4 is like spread out wider. So I kind of like the DS4 controller better than the Xbox One controller. And that's just my preference on that.
Yeah, because when we had the 360, I loved the 360 controller that much. I said, why have they changed the controller? And obviously, I got used to it over time. But when you initially start playing with it, it's a bit different. But in the end, I think they made the right decision. But
yeah, it's a very good question, Stubbs. But this nonsense about there was a big deal to do about it. I first heard about it on Twitter, and I thought, oh God, here we go again. What are we going to argue about today on Twitter?
You said you got to have a drink. You did.
Yeah, I did. I actually had to drink very heavy that night because I actually felt like my IQ went down after listening to everybody arguing all day long, and they were arguing over controllers. And I thought, what are we arguing about now? And like I said, everybody's like, oh my God, you mean you got to use a new controller with the new system? And I'm thinking to myself, it's been that way since the beginning of time.
Definitely has, yeah.
And I thought, I get it. This is the direction that Microsoft's going in, and that you can use but just because they're doing that, it doesn't change everything that's happened down throughout history. It's always been that way. You get a new controller with your new system. and that's the way it's always been. And not to mention that the PS5 controller actually has a lot of added features which actually improve that controller. I mean, it's got longer battery life for number one. So if you're going to spend all this money on a new system, wouldn't you want to play on your new system with a better controller with more features that has extra long battery life? I do. I don't want to be held back by last generation's controller.
I agree with you,
but I heard the arguing, and I thought, and even the problem with social media is, if, like, for instance, if I get on there and I type out just what I said on Twitter, all of a sudden you can't have an opinion on Twitter anymore. Like if I say I prefer this controller better, within 5 seconds I'll get attacked by somebody that wants to argue or wants to change my opinion. And look, I've been gaming for 40 years. They're wasting their time. It's not gonna change my opinion. I know what I like. I mean, I've gamed long enough. It's the way it's always been in gaming. And that goes for other topics too. Stubbs, if you get on there and say something, I'm sure if you say something, somebody will find an issue with it, because everybody's so picky anymore. They want to try to change your mind, which, why can't I just have a rhetorical opinion when I put something on Twitter? If I say something, it doesn't mean I want to argue and combat everybody.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not as bad as I used to be. A few years ago, I used to go really hard at people and argue, and I don't do it as much anymore.
Right.
One of the PlayStation community's finest, most toxic fanboys has got me blocked.
Right.
I can't tell you why, but
that being said, like you guys, Graphic God, Indie Gamer, Mike from Original Next Level Gaming, Super Cooper, you Stubbs, Mr. Tushy, all these people, Nano, you are all some great gamers, and I love you guys, and I'd love to get to know more of you even better. But sometimes, of course, with me being 48 years old, sometimes you just gotta voice your opinion. I'm not gonna argue or tear somebody down. Like Stubbs, if you got on Twitter and you said, "Well, I like the Xbox controller better," and I see that, and I'm thumbing through my Twitter, I'm not gonna come after you and argue with you. I'm gonna go, okay, Stubbs likes the Xbox controller better. Fair enough. But these guys, if I say I like the PlayStation controller better, I get attacked, and everybody's like, well, I don't like the asymmetrical sticks. And I'm thinking to myself, I didn't ask you if you don't like the asymmetrical sticks. Exactly. I simply said, I prefer this, and you can't have an opinion anymore because everybody wants to argue with you.
You do. I mean, the only thing I've got, it'd be different if they said to you, right, you're getting your PS5 or your Xbox Series X, right, and they no longer come with controllers. Yeah,
right.
So you got to buy the new. You see what I mean, right?
Right.
But the new controllers come with your new console, so I can't see a problem. If you're buying the console, it comes with it.
Well, yeah. You get one new controller in the box.
Exactly. So the only thing I have got a thing with, and I'm maybe a bit old school. I don't know about your view on this. Is I still like the old rechargeable battery packs. And
right.
Not have it internally like it is in the PlayStation 4,
I don't mind either way, whether it's internal or the rechargeable packs. I'm not a big fan of the batteries, but I don't mind the rechargeable packs.
Yeah.
But with the controller, the way I see it, if you buy a PS5, you get a brand new PS5 controller.
Yeah.
It's got upgraded features. It's got a better microphone. It's got a longer lasting battery. It's got a more comfortable shape to it. There's a lot of features that they've added. It's not just, they just didn't throw out some hodgepodge of a controller. It's actually got features that maybe some of these new games, it's got two different type of feedbacks. It's got the haptic feedback and the other feedback. So there are things with this controller the developers may want to use on the PlayStation 5 specific games that take advantage of this new controller. The funny thing is, I look back, I posted a video on Twitter the other day when everybody was arguing about this controller nonsense. I've got 30 or 40 Xbox One controllers. Now, here's the funny thing. The Xbox One came out, it had the Xbox console came out, it had the Duke. You had the Xbox 360 controller. That had a different controller. You had an Xbox One controller. That was different than the 360. It wasn't until this generation, and after Microsoft sold everybody 500 different controllers, because every week they were coming out with a different controller. And then I even got the Design Lab controller. Then they came out with the Xbox Elite controller, which I paid $175 for. So this company's pumping out controllers at me left and right. Now, all of a sudden, they're saying, whoa, now you can play with all your controllers. Well, I'd hope so, because I've sunk a small fortune into them. So, I mean, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but let's be real. Just because this year you've decided that your prior controllers work with the new console, you can't look at PlayStation and say, oh, what they're doing is bad. Because what PlayStation's doing is what the traditional console's done since the beginning of time. But I mean, but people are going to argue about it, and like each to their own. If somebody has a different opinion of mine, I'm not going to get mad and argue with them. But I'm telling you what, if I said this on Twitter, oh God, they'll come hunt me down, and then I'll lose followers and this and that. And you know how the game goes.
Oh, I know it's sad. I mean, if I was to suddenly which I am after, if I was suddenly to get a PlayStation 4, which I will be getting when I can find one cheap enough, because I want to play God of War and get through the Last of Us games. If I put a picture on there, I'll probably lose a few followers.
Well, and anybody that really knows me, if you talk to like guys, like if you talk to my buddy Mike Mullis or other people in the gaming community that have known me for years, they know that I'm a very loving person. I've had my fair share of arguments on Twitter, but everybody knows that deep down that I'm just a gamer, and I'm never going to come after somebody. I'm never going to hurt somebody. I'm not going to make somebody feel stupid. If somebody says they like this console better, I'm just going to read it and go on. That's their opinion. I am not going to argue with people, because that is a waste of time, Stubs. But that's what people do. For some reason, they think Twitter is a platform to argue or debate. That's not what it is. Sometimes I get up in the morning and I'm drinking a cup of coffee and I'll tweet something like, oh, I just got my hair cut, or I just, I'm not looking for an argument. I'm just tweeting something out.
Yeah.
But we've turned it into this big courtroom, and that's the problem, No,
you're right. I mean, it does have a negative effect on gaming, but you just got to see it as, I kind of ignore it. I don't think the whole Twitter is like, because everyone says, oh, this is a big part of the gaming. And it is for the majority of the people that are actually positive, but it's the negative people that drag it down,
Right.
When you think of the player base of the whole world, not being nasty, but the Twitter element is a minor part of the grand scheme of things,
Well, it was so bad this last week. I took 2 or 3 days. I didn't even... Next Level Gaming, I wanted to be our last show. I actually missed. I took a few days off, man, and I hadn't even talked to Mike yet about this, but there was so much bad vibes on social media and Twitter, man. It was really starting to depress me. And I had to just step away from everything for a few days, because I told my wife, I said, and my wife, she's a couple years younger than me, and she's my best friend, and we game together all the time. But I told my wife, I said, this is not what gaming's about. I mean, we're arguing over controllers that have always come new with new consoles, or the other thing is we're arguing over exclusive content. And that's the other thing that really gripes me. Both Xbox and PlayStation, Nintendo, all these companies have paid for exclusive content, timed releases, blah, blah, blah. The list goes on. And And everybody's like, oh, that's anti-consumer. No, it's not. That's Xbox or PlayStation paying a little extra money to get maybe a few extra characters, or give their customers an incentive to buy their console.
Exactly.
So I don't look at it as being anti-consumer, especially as a consumer. We all have the choice of buying multiple consoles. You don't have to play just one.
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, there is a lot of people again. It's like the Avengers deal, but this Avengers game, like everyone is moaning because of this Spider-Man. But they own the movie rights, but I believe that they have the rights to do Spider-Man in games. So
Right.
it's not as if I don't even think they've probably signed a big money deal. It's probably they've just allowed it to happen. But then apparently, what I was told, correct me if I'm wrong, that this content, this Spider-Man, isn't even coming out. The actual part of the PlayStation get, it ain't even coming out till 2021. That he's not being added to the game till then.
Well, that, and I remember there was, what was that one fighting game? X-Men versus whatever. Xbox paid for 8 exclusive characters on that game that was not on any other console. So they've all done it. It's not something new. But what's happening, and the reason why we're having all these arguments, Stubbs, is we're getting close to launch time.
I know.
And the fanboys are coming out of the woodwork, even if they're in denial, even if they deny it, it's coming out and you can see it. It's all over the place.
You need to change people's minds, don't they?
Yeah, they've got to. Yeah, but like I said, there's so many great people though. People that I've met, like I can't say enough about Indie Gamer, Graphic God, my friend Mike Mullis, Peter, Chris Fastback. They're just my friend Takagami and OT that I've known for 12 or 13 years. My friend OT, he lives in New Orleans. His gamer tag is Old Timer on Xbox, and his son passed away a little over a year ago. And yeah, and he had some real trouble and was down and out. And I bought him a new console actually a couple Christmases ago and mailed it to him. And I've done some other things for people in the gaming community that have went through some hard times and either got them an Xbox or PlayStation or a controller or some games that they wanted, because it just makes me feel good. To me, it's not how many followers I have or how well my YouTube channel's doing or what shows I'm on or this and that. I don't care about all that. What really matters, if I can bring a little enjoyment into someone's life or do a little miracle or do something nice for somebody, that's what gaming's all about. That's what community's about,
It is, most definitely. You're right. That was really nice of you doing that, and that was. There is some people that do stuff like that in the community.
We need more of that.
Most definitely.
There's nothing wrong about it. We all have our preferences, and there's nothing wrong being passionate about the Xbox or Microsoft or being passionate about Sony or PlayStation. But just because someone says something on the internet that we don't agree with doesn't mean that we have to go argue and debate about it. Just let it go. That's their opinion. You can argue all day, Stubbs, with people, but you're not going to change somebody's opinion.
No, most definitely.
It's a waste of time. Life's short,
It is. I'll just get some more shout outs. I think I missed a couple of people. Welcome, Michael Monkey Punch. Welcome, Judzilla, if I'm saying it right. Welcome, Nano. I think I'm caught up. Thanks for stopping by, everyone. Now, NLG, the podcast.
Yes, sir.
It's a very good podcast, and there are some very heated debates sometimes. Do you want to talk about it? It's not every show, just because you're all passionate gamers. It works.
Well, I tell you what, I met Mike Mullis back in the days. I can't, man, it was early on Xbox One. And I think 2015, I started on the show when it kind of first began, just a few episodes in. And at the time, we were just using Hangouts, and there was no video or whatnot. And of course, Mike's an esteemed journalist, and he's got years of experience. And to be honest, I love Mike like a brother. He's me and him are close in age too, so I feel real comfortable with. We have a lot of things in common, but he has a gaming history and knowledge because that's just unmatched because of things that he's been around, and I can relate to him because I have that same experience, but just on the the video game side of it, not the journalism. But we both share a passion. All the guys on the show are great. Peter, Chris, Frankie. Now, I left the show and then I came back this January, and I've been there since the beginning of January. I've missed 2 episodes this year, but I've been there for every episode. I love being on the show. All the guys are full of I mean, each week I've always, sometimes people are so serious about gaming, and I'm kind of more on the goofy side. I like to have fun with it. I like to joke around. I like to laugh. I like to dress up like the video game characters. I like to have a lot of fun with it because that's what gaming's all about. And each week I look forward to being on Next Level Gaming. Right now we each have a topic that we usually bring up, and my skit is Ready Player John. I've been covering some VR games because I've really been into the VR stuff, and I thought that's Ready Player John was they came up with that name for me, so I kind of like that. But we all have years of experience of gaming, and now on a side note, I would say that when I joined the show, I would say that most of the guys are, maybe not Frankie and me, but the rest of the guys are probably, I would say, probably pro Xbox or lean more toward the Xbox side of things. I think me and Frankie are kind of more on the PlayStation side of things. So sometimes that does present a challenge because, topics come up and, we have, but like I said, no matter how much you love a company, sometimes you got to be honest too, and you got to give an honest opinion, as long as you do it in a tasteful way. If Microsoft or Sony does something that I don't approve of, I'm going to mention it, because none of these companies are perfect. They all make bad decisions. They've all had projects that have failed. They've had games that have been canceled. They've done some things that got them in trouble business-wise or money. And being realistic, you just have to be able to call it like it is sometime. If you just shove that under a carpet somewhere and ignore it, these companies don't get any better. But as long as you do it in a tasteful manner, you don't have to be cussing and yelling and being belligerent about somebody or arguing on people on Twitter all day long. You can make your statement and go on, But the guys on the show are great. But sometimes we do have differences of opinions. But that's what makes the show so great. Because like I told Mike before, if every week, if Next Level Gaming came on and everything was just rah, Xbox is perfect. Everything they're doing is great. Everything's wonderful. If we did that week in and week out, that's not the case. That's not being truthful. So I think what I bring to the show is a different perspective, even though I like Xbox and I've supported Xbox for years. I would say I have a preference for PlayStation, but the fact that I kind of have, that's why they call me Spicy John, because I have a different take on things. Like everything's just not rainbows and butterflies all the time.
I've learned something now. That's why they call you Spicy John then.
Right. And, there's, for instance, Microsoft and Sony are going in 2 totally different directions. Sony's doing the traditional console thing along with Nintendo. They're kind of doing their traditional console thing. And Microsoft, is pushing this Project X Cloud, streaming games. They're kind of pushing that, which is fine if you like that. I differ with most of the guys on the show because I'm not into the streaming that much. I'm not really, that's not my thing. I prefer a box and my games and traditional way of playing. And I probably always will. But I think that element, I bring something different to the show, because if everybody's agreeing all the time, that would be a pretty boring show. You got to be able to talk about things and have different opinions on things,
It does happen on a lot of shows. A lot of people do agree with each other.
Right. And
it's good.
We try to do it, I try to do it in a respectful way. If like this streaming thing, I'm usually real busy at work. I'm an electrician. I've been an electrician for 25, 30 years. I work on robots and machinery. And when I'm at work,
that's a clever job.
Yeah, so I don't have time to like play video games at work. I don't even on my lunch break. Usually on my lunch break, I'm either eating food or I'm trying to take a little nap, or get some rest in. So things like streaming to my phone and different things like that, I really could care less. That's not my cup of tea. I don't care about streaming my games to a computer, a laptop, none of that. All I care about is when I get home, Stubbs, is that I can turn on one of my consoles and start playing a game, either by myself or with my wife or with my friends. I don't care about all these other features. Gaming has always, and that's why I love gaming so much. I've always kept it real simplistic and it works for me. I love the games. I play them for hours. I just get saturated in the storylines. I don't care if I can play on my cell phone when I'm away or at work or stuff. And that's good for other people if they like it, but it just doesn't work out for me, because I have other things outside of gaming too, going to church on Sunday, spending time with my wife, my 4 kids, they're grown and out of the house now, but I'm still active in their lives. My daughter moved to Ohio. Was supposed to be getting married. So there's a lot of things going on. And, every spare moment, I just can't be playing games everywhere I go. And I think it's unrealistic to think that people are going to do that all the time. As much as I love gaming, you need your break away from games as well.
Oh, most definitely. I mean, a lot of the time, like, I only get a chance to actually do it when my kids are in bed. I mean, you're talking like 9 at night. And then sometimes I just fall asleep. I don't do it every day, you know what I mean? Because it's kind of family comes first and work and all that comes first,
Nano had a question down there. He said, so no to xCloud, but yes to Game Pass. Actually, it's a no for both. And the reason why I think Game Pass is good for those that want to take advantage of it. The reason that I'm not big on Game Pass, since I play on different platforms, the Switch, the Xbox, the PlayStation, the computer, I don't like paying for a bunch of services. I already pay for Netflix. I already pay for Amazon Prime. There's a couple other things I pay for. That's enough for me. I mean, before you know it, you've got 20 services that you're paying for, and you're wondering where all your money's going to. Second thing, like I said, there's only so much time in the day. So if I'm working 60 hours a week, even though Game Pass may be a great deal for gamers getting to play all those games, I've got big blockbuster games coming out on the Switch, the Xbox, and the PlayStation. I can't get around to playing all those and all the ones in Game Pass, which most of those I've already played before. So for me, I mean, I guess Game Pass is good for some people, but for me, it's just not. I just don't have the time to pay. I mean, I already got EA access and everything else. I mean, the gaming community will nickel and dime you if you don't watch out. And there's only so much time, and I can't get around to everything. Now, the other end of that, I've always liked buying my games, and I'm not really completely sold on the Game Pass thing, because I know that, from my understanding, the way I understand that it works is they have to pay kind of like a lump sum of what they think that the game may sell, and that they buy the game. And then, of course, you pay your Game Pass fee, whatever that is, and you got 100 games. Of course, the games you're paying for are spread out with all those games. So there's just a fractional part of that money that's even going towards those games on Game Pass. And even Aaron Greenberg said that he stated that Game Pass isn't really making a lot of money right now. Now,
yeah, I think it's one of them long haul jobs, isn't it, over time?
Right. It may, now there's nothing bad with that. It may down the road. I get what the idea is. The idea is like when people used to sell Amway, product, you get a whole bunch of this customer sells this, and all of a sudden, the exposure brings in, they're hoping that brings in more money. But I'm just more of a traditional guy. I like paying for my games. I have no problem. I've paid for them my whole life. When I was a little kid and bought my first computer, I paid with my own money. And I just feel like that it helps the developers more when I'm paying more for the game. I know exactly there's a percentage of that money that you pay that goes to the developer. And it's not that great, but I at least know that that's going where it's going, and that's kind of how I view Game Pass. And not to mention, I just don't have the time. Now, that being said, I don't think it's a bad service. There may be some families out there that maybe don't have a lot of money, or, maybe that little extra money works out great for them. But I just can't get around to playing all those games along with my other console games.
Yeah. Thank you for that question, Nano. It wasn't a question I was going to ask you because I watch NLG. I kind of knew your whole stance on Game Pass and xCloud, but it was a very good answer.
But that's the difference. And like my good friend Michael Mullis there, it's really good it works out for him and his family, and that's wonderful. The one thing you'll find about me though, Stubbs, even though I don't like Game Pass and it doesn't work for me and my family, I won't give anybody a hard time if it works for them and their family. Like, I'm not going to criticize anybody for buying it, and I'm not going to make fun of it. That's something that they like. And this goes back to what I was talking about. If someone says they like Game Pass on Twitter, then they like Game Pass. I accept that. I'm not going to argue with them or try to make them feel bad. I mean, that's their right to buy it or to not buy it.
Oh, most definitely. I mean, recently I've seen the benefits because I have Game Pass Ultimate. I got one of them deals, where they like doubled and tripled you. If you converted it all and paid a quid. I've got it till the August 2021. But my son's recently started to play games, and he's only 5.
Awesome.
And he's now Game Pass. There's a Power Rangers game in there. He's playing that. He's playing that right. totally reliable delivery service game. He's been playing Minecraft, and I'm surprised. A lot of games he's been playing. Obviously, he's in my account, but I have seen the benefits of him playing these little like Disney games on there as well, And it's helped out that way. I own got Minecraft already,
Then you got Stubbs. You got these so-called and I was guilty of this. You got these so-called free-to-play games. Now I got a little story. I was guilty of this. There was a little game called Neverwinter, Dungeons and Dragons. Yeah. And that came out on the Xbox One and, free to play. So I download the game, and I get into it. I spent tons of hours getting through the campaign and everything. And then it was time to go on the missions online and stuff, and, before you know it, though, they had all these things that you could buy. You could buy mounts like dragons you could ride on. You could buy new costumes, new outfits. You could buy these little chests that you open up and you have a chance to win something, or you've got a chance for that. Well, before you know it, my wife came home one day from work and she had this mean look on her face. I was like, oh, crap, I'm in trouble. And I had spent like $500 and some, on rinky-dink DLC and paid content or what, just different things, gold and items and clothing and dragon mounts and things like that. So that's one thing that I struggle with some of these games too. Like some of these games, they're a cash cow for money and people pay for it hand over fist. But I just think it's horrible, man. I mean, give me a game that's complete, I know The Witcher 3, CD Projekt Red, they did an awesome job because when you bought their Ultimate Edition of that game, one of my favorite all-time games, The Witcher 3, you got a lot of DLC content for free or a couple you didn't have to pay extra, and they did it more reasonable. But some of these games that are free to pay, they're anything but free to pay. And, it's just a money trap.
It is. I mean, look at you look at the fortunes of the Epic Games developers. I mean, they were Indy's going to moan at me again. The original developers of Gears of War. They put Gears of War on the shelf, sold it to Microsoft, and brought Fortnite out with Save the World, and then they found a way of jumping on this Battle Royale mode, and they racked billions in, it's incredible what they're actually worth. It's incredible.
Oh yeah. And, of course there's young kids that are stealing their mom and dad's credit card too and charging up the.
I know people that have had that happen to them.
So
they stupidly connected their credit card to the PS4, and it happened. And I said, "Well, you learned your lesson now, ain't you?" And they removed it. I said,
Well, in some ways, there's a retro gamer in me that just keeps me in check. Like, there's things about when I was growing up back in 1977 playing the Atari that, you didn't have DLC. You didn't have updates. When the game came out, they made sure it worked. Now, granted, the games aren't on the scale of what they are now, but back then they were on the scale. That was cutting edge technology at the time, and I liked that time then because developers made sure that games come out. They weren't popping out every other week, a game here, a game there. It would take a long time and a game would come out. It was a nice finished product and you didn't have the trouble. You put in your cartridge. The only thing that you ever had to do occasionally was whip that cartridge out and blow in it, and get out the dust, and stick it in and on you go. I mean, now, they're releasing these games and they're buggy, they're glitchy, they're not complete. They don't have certain modes in them. And, they tell you, oh yeah, well, the multiplayer mode will be in 6 months later, and blah, blah, blah. Don't release the game if it's not ready. I don't understand. You're better off launching a game that's complete and polished and finished, because people will love that. People won't forget a bad game. If you launch a game that has a bunch of issues, for example, the Master Chief Collection, I bought that and I loved that, but it was plagued with issues. And as great as it is and all the games that it contains, people look over that and they tend to focus on all the problems. And that's a classic example of what happens when you're trying to do too much or you launch something when it's not ready, and I would rather than postpone a game than just get it out real quick.
Oh, most definitely, but that's the negative side. That is of game, it's just, but
I said, sorry. He said, whip it out and stick it in. I don't even know if I can repeat that. I guess I just did.
But no, I fully respect your the way you see gaming. As you say, if we all seen it the same way, it'd be boring, wouldn't it?
Right. And the other thing, Stub, not to interrupt you, there's an old saying: if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So, I mean, these companies, they want to add all these features and do all this and that, man, but don't change the whole landscape of gaming. We've had new controllers with consoles for the last 40 years. Don't give a company a hard time if they're going to continue to do that. My take on it, if you want to stream games and that's the future you want, be my guest, but that's not everybody's future. And that's certainly not mine, and we don't even know if that's the way it should go. Just because a company wants to go that way, it doesn't mean it's the best decision for everybody.
Well, you are right. I mean, I still don't think the world's infrastructure is still ready to be able to cope with stream games like the way it's a very good plan Xbox has got. But if you've got crappy internet or your 4G's crap, there's no point, for a lot of people. And there'll be a small percentage of people that will actually be able to do it regular and it will work just like on a console. So it is an option, but I think one day their plan is everyone will be doing it. But I think you're talking 10 plus years down the road,
Right. And of course, these companies, they're just like other big companies in the corporate world. They're always trying to find a way to spend less and make more. Exactly. And that's what streaming's all about. Spend less, make more. Now, on the flip side of that, are we going to get the quality of games that we want or the experience? Right now, no, I don't think so. And I don't see that. For me, that's not going to replace what I've grown to love, the hobby that I love. And, and I've kidded around with Mike, my buddy Mike, on the show before. I'm like, man, if they go to all streaming one day, Stubbs, I said, I'll just go back to retro gaming, or I'll quit gaming. And part of me actually really feels that way. I mean, I feel like that there's this big push for streaming, but it's not like they asked all the gamers' opinion. They're just doing it.
Yeah, I'll be honest. If it was, and that was the only they would, say for instance, they took all the options away and said it's streaming, that's it. I wouldn't be a fan of that.
Right.
But my internet isn't good enough to cope with it. Plus, you got Netflix streaming in the house, all these other things streaming at the same time. My internet isn't like a lot of people's internet, like, a few hundred up or down or whatever, Well,
you got to be careful. I mean, things that have worked for the last 34 years, don't try to change it all. Like, I'm sorry, but the way gaming's been for the last 30 to 40 years has brought me and my kids and my family so much enjoyment. Don't run it all, because I've seen it happen with other companies, not in the video game business, but that are in other types of business. And they start changing things. They tried to find cheaper ways of doing things. The quality goes down, and before you know it, the company's out of business. So, all I'm saying is that there are some of us traditional gamers that like the way we've been playing. And there's a large portion of us that grew up in the 80s that were, when the gaming revolution took off, that was my generation, so I was part of that. The movies, like the movies like Goonies, all the movies, Tron, they all had video games in them, video game related. That was me back then,
Yeah. I see what you mean. The way, yeah, it's the way, it is the way, from when you look back from then and now, I can see why they're trying streaming, because say for instance, in the Asian markets, their internet is incredibly good. But that's not the entire world, is it?
No. And and I guess what I'm saying, neither way's right, wrong. If someone wants to stream their games, and in the future, 10 years from now, they don't want a console, they don't want any physical games, and that's what they want, then that's okay with me. That's what they want, but that is not what I want. And I just think, I think you got to be careful. You don't want to change everything too quick. And, right now, like Microsoft's heavily invested in going that way, and Nintendo and Sony aren't really going that way right now. They still do streaming, things like that, but they're not putting all their eggs in that basket.
No, they're not.
So I like the fact that I have options, because if it comes down to, like, here's the thing. If I came home and all I had to do was buy an Xbox controller, and I just paid some monthly fee, like $150 a month or whatever, and they promised me the world, streaming 4K games with no problem, 120 frames per second, when they can't even do that on the console natively anyway. And they promised me all that stuff. So I come home from work and I just grab a controller and turn on the TV and start playing a game. And I don't have my console. I don't even have the option of buying a hard copy game. And then this fee that I pay, they have the option of controlling what titles come in and out of the service. I don't like that, because that's all out of my control. That's in their control. And it just seems kind of cold. That's not the type of gaming, whether I was gaming on PC or gaming on a console, man, there was something awesome growing up as a kid about having that console, having my cartridges, having my floppy disk drive, or having my floppy disks, or having my CD-ROMs or my Blu-rays. I still like all that tangible material.
Yeah, well, that's good. It is, because I mean, if you would have asked me in the 360 era, do you think in 15 odd years' time that I would be downloading games? I would have told you no bloody chance.
Right.
I wouldn't have thought it'd be possible.
The 360 era was great. I mean, I loved the 360. There was everything about the 360 I loved. I loved the dashboard. The dashboard is much better. Like, it was easy to use. It was simple. I liked it. When they had Mark Whitten, it was not Win. He did a lot of the dashboard updates for Xbox, and he did the 360 updates. He did a wonderful job. I mean, when he did an update, they worked. You know, they didn't have all these problems. You know, when I first got my Xbox One, I mean, there were updates like every other day. Every time I turned on my Xbox, there was an update for this, an update for that. And I still don't like the dashboard. Now, that's just a personal preference. I just think it's too complicated. You know, most people just want to come home, Stubbs, and they want to put in their game. Just make something easy that you can get to right away, not menus within menus. You know,
oh, no, definitely.
You don't need all that. You know, they've got some, and they're innovative. Microsoft's always been innovative, but sometimes it's just too cluttered. It's too much for console gamers. It's, you know, we don't need all that. I mean, at the end of the day, whether you're an Xbox fan, a PlayStation fan, you just want AAA exclusives and you want quality games. I mean, that's what a lot of people want growing up. I mean, I want quality games. I don't want shovelware. I don't want, you know, I don't want all that.
And quality indie games.
Well, the quality indie games are fantastic. Yes, quality indie games are fantastic. I've played a lot of indie games. They're just great.
There is one game that's come out. Whether you've got a PC, is it called Fallout, guys? It looks really good. I've seen indie gamer playing it.
Good. Yeah.
Please come to Xbox. It looks good. It does. So, John, what made you want to make a website and start doing reviews and blogs?
Well, I'm glad you asked that, man. And thanks again for everybody that's listening in. Man, I appreciate your guys' support. I know I'm goofy. I'm just a gamer. I love games. But the fact that Michael and Matt Burns and Daz and Indie Gamer and Graphic God, the fact that you guys just took out the time to come in the chat at all means the world to me. I love you guys. You guys will always have my support, and I'll continue. I just wanted to give a shout out to those people, Stubbs. They mean the world to me, and they've got a friend for life as long as they want me.
Oh, cheers, Dad. See that? I don't see any baldness, unlike some. LOL. He's referring to me. It doesn't bother me, Dad. I like being bald.
Right. So you want to know how I got into my websites? And
yeah.
Well, what happened for the longest time, I've always liked writing. My dad, when I was growing up, my dad actually, he got an English degree from Purdue, and then he went on to do something else. But my dad used to publish poetry and write. Growing up as a kid, and when I went to college, even in high school, I took great books classes. I read things like Shakespeare, Dante's Inferno, the Iliad and the Odyssey, some amazing books. I loved reading books, and I've always loved writing. I've always had a big imagination. So what better way than to write and to write about something you love, like video games? And I've got, it's Techno Fabulous GameReviews.org, and that's on WordPress.com. It's more of a blog, but it's reviews and whatnot. And so that's just something I started that. And that's really, when I started that wasn't to get followers. That wasn't to try to impress anybody. That was actually kind of something that I just wanted to do for myself, because there's something real gratifying. Like, I wrote a review on Zelda Link's Awakening for the Switch. And when I wrote that, and I added pictures, and I did a real nice job. Every article that I do, I take my time with. Today, a lot of times, people get these review copies and they play like 5 hours of a game, and they give you a review that's like horrible of a game, or
they miss most of it out.
You can't review a game in 5 hours, and people all race, trying to get to that finish line to be the first one out to get the review out, for whatever, followers, likes, popularity, you name it. This technofabulousgamereviews.org was just something that I did so I could look back, my kids could look at it, my wife, something that I could say, hey, I wrote that, I'm proud of that. Look at that. I played this game in its entirety. I gave an honest opinion about it. I spent my time on it and added nice pictures. So it was just kind of something I wanted to do just for me, because I love games that much and I love writing about them. On that technofabulousgamereviews.org, I did a review on the Panzer Dragoon remake for the Switch. I've got an MLB The Show 2020 review. That's awesome. I mean, Luigi's Mansion and all of them, I spent a lot of time not only writing them, but adding nice pictures. So it's just something that I'm proud of. It's not trying to get myself anywhere, become more popular. It's just something that I wanted to do, actually.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a really good site because when you, because you'd always mentioned it before that you do reviews and that. You don't actually plug it on your Twitter or anything. So I had to actually ask you, what's your website? Because as you say, it's something for yourself. You don't actually have it on your Twitter. Or because I said to you, messaged you and said, what is your actual website then?
Right. Well, I've got I've got technofabulousgamereviews.org, and that's from WordPress, and anybody can go to that. And I've got a few reviews actually coming up within the next week.
It's in the description, peeps.
Yeah, I've got a Ghost of Tsushima review coming up, and when I get around to playing Paper Mario, that's probably my next game that I'm going to do a review on. So I have that coming up. I do have a YouTube channel, and it's just under Techno Fabulous, but it's not something I just created something so I could post some gameplay. Some of it goes back several years ago of me gaming with some friends. I've got some PlayStation VR games on there. I've got like some Halo 5 Arena Slayer. I've got Drive Club. I've got the Star Wars game on Xbox One, Diablo, Dead or Alive, fighting, Ratchet and Clank. And then I got some goofy little reviews where I actually reviewed a lightsaber that I purchased and gave my review on that. And these little funny things, you're going to get a kick out of this, but I actually saw this at the store. They were thumb sweatbands for gamers. And I thought, now that's what every gamer needs is thumb sweatbands. I mean, heaven knows how could we finish a game without thumb sweatbands? So I picked those up and I did a funny little review on that. But my YouTube channel was never meant to, I created everything I do is for fun. And because I love gaming and I'm passionate about it. It's really not, if I die and I've got 70 followers, I'm not going to lose any sleep over it. It's a way for me to do something. And, sometimes when you're too many people are worried about that all the time. How many likes I got, how many dislikes I got, how many emojis did I get, and pretty soon you're living in this virtual world that just drives you batty, and that's why I love the Next Level Gaming podcast as well, too, because we have some really good guys on that show and we have really great content. And even though we would love to have more followers and we would love to have a bigger following the nights that we podcast, we have quality people that watch our show that are very passionate, that care about us. And you can tell in the comment section. So stuff like that means more to us, than having 50,000 followers and they're just all bad apples, if you know what I mean. Because there are what I call shock jocks out there that anything that they can find controversial is what they put on, their YouTube channel just for followers. But there's no substance to the shows. And you're like looking at these guys and you're thinking, how does this clown have 50,000 followers? This guy's a goofball. What he's saying is not even true. And yet all these people are following him like the Pied Piper. So it's insane,
Definitely true.
Yeah. It blows my mind. Here we are, like Mike Mullis. I got to take my hat off to this guy because he worked so hard. He puts together a quality show. The guy's got a heart of gold. And he may not know this, but I'd do anything for the guy, as well as the other guys on the show. And sure, sometimes we don't get along. Sure, sometimes we argue. But you know what? Best friends argue sometimes. Sometimes best friends have different opinions. But the one thing our show does have, we have quality content, and we're all passionate about what we do. And we're not going to lie to you. If Stubbs, if someone asks me, like if Graphic God or Indie Gamer says, hey, I'm thinking about getting a PlayStation, and what do you think about this game? I'm going to give them my honest opinion, whether it's good or bad, same with Xbox. And I think that's why people listen into us. We have quality listeners on our show.
Oh, most definitely. I mean, I always catch up on demand, or I try to, and I struggle to watch it live because of the time. But obviously,
there's a 5-hour difference, isn't there?
Indie Gamer and Daz are usually there, though.
Right.
They are. I will catch it live one day, but I think it starts at like 3 in the morning here.
Well, don't worry about it. I couldn't even catch it live this week, and I'm on the show. It was a bad week, and it just a lot of things going on, and Twitter's going nuts, man. And to be honest with you, I just had to step away from things because sometimes, it just people get silly on there, man. And it runs it for me because, like I said, growing up, we didn't have all this stuff. I mean, sure, you had Sega, Nintendo, jabbing each other, and doing different things, but there wasn't all this like people just arguing and, I hope your mom goes to hell and I hope you die and, this and that. And people are getting they're acting like morons, and it's all over video. And that's not what gaming's about. And, it's just sad, and sometimes I can blow it off and get, and it doesn't bother me. Then other times you just get on there and you just read things on Twitter and you're like, oh my God, I can't deal with this today.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. It's one of them situations, isn't it? You just got to try and ignore it. You have.
But yeah, I mean, I love my blogs and my write-ups, my reviews. I just love doing that, and I plan to continue on doing that. And I just like having something, and I can say at the end of the day, and say, hey, John Place wrote that, and I can take pride in it. That I put the time and effort, and I'm not trying to get followers in this. I'm just doing it for me. Because when you write, man, it just makes you feel good. You get your feelings out on paper. You play a game, you review it. And it's creativity. It's like artwork. And I get it that we're in this age where you got people streaming games, and a lot of people are like, oh, people don't need to write reviews anymore. That's old school. I can go to YouTube and I can watch somebody play the entire game, for 16 hours straight.
People do actually. People do actually still, and I know it sounds crazy, but people still do actually read reviews on websites. I know it's a hard thing for people to understand, but people do actually. A lot of people still read. I know you can get a video, but it's still a thing. I know a lot of people believe it isn't. You could just watch a stream of it, but people do read reviews,
Yeah, and it's but it kills me anymore. Like people are like, John, I've had a couple people say, John, why do you even waste your time writing and doing that? People don't. They just go and watch somebody play it on YouTube, and that's sad because I remember when for example, The Last of Us 2 came out. And of course, the internet went wild with stuff, and people were running the ending and all this. All these people are going, and watching the gameplay of the game before it comes out. And I'm sitting there looking at my wife, and I'm thinking, to each his own. Like if you want to watch somebody else play games your entire life, be my guest. But that's not me. There's a difference between doing something and watching somebody else do it. And I don't really have a lot of respect for people that just sit there and just watch somebody else do it. Like, there's a whole different feeling when you buy a game and play it yourself and you go through the story, you have your own experience. If you're just watching somebody else playing it, you're living it through them, through their emotions, not yours. So, some people say, well, I want to know how the game plays, or I want to know what the game plays like. Well, okay, I get that, but you just watched 24 hours straight of a stream. That's more than just a little snippet of a game, you know? So for me, I just kind of find it odd. I don't know. Like me, I would rather be surprised. Like when a game comes out, now sometimes I've been burnt. You know, we all have. Like a game, big game's coming out, and you spend $60 and you get it and you play it and you're disappointed, or it's not what you thought it would be. But that's what gaming's always been that way. But you know, I don't want it ruined before the game comes out. I certainly don't want to know what happens to the characters, whether someone lives or whether they die, or you know, to me, that's just a waste of time.
It is. It's like all Last of Us 2 leaks when they came out. You know what I mean?
Oh, it was horrible.
People on Twitter going out there purposely to just comment on people's, you know. But
and it was funny, Stubbs, because people for that game in particular, I would hear people, well, I got part of the script. I know what's going to happen. And, you know, I know it, even though they didn't show it, you know, just the whole storyline's bad and blah, blah, blah. And I mean, I got to tell you, it's one of the best games I've played this generation. The storyline, and I'm not just saying that because I bought it, it's that good. So, you know, people want to run things for other people. You know, that's what it is.
Yeah. This is sad. It's sad, but you try and keep away from them people, don't you? You know,
right? Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's just shocking, but that's where we're, you know, but like you said, people do read reviews, and to be honest, I like reading the reviews. I would rather read a review than watch. I mean, I'm already a gamer. I don't need to watch other people play games I mean, I've got my own opinion. I can play the game myself. You know, it's a weird, we've got a new age of gamers that are out there. And I don't know. I don't blend in. Maybe I'm a little old school. Maybe I don't like a lot of change. You know what? But hey, that's fine. That's me. And it's worked for 40 years. So I'm going to stick with it, you know?
Most definitely, you know. I got a question here from a community member.
Yes, sir.
For you. From Mr. Tushi.
All right.
He says, what's the most you've spent in a game shop in one transaction?
Oh, probably when I got my brother, my brother was real sick. My brother has seizure problems, and his health has been real bad. And actually, he has grandma real violent seizures, and they can't get him under control. So his health's been real bad. And his wife left him because he was going through, yeah. And this happened several years ago. Well, he's actually living with my mom and dad, and they're trying to help take care of him. And he went through a real rough time and lost about everything. So one year I bought him a PS4. I bought him 2 years subscription to PlayStation Network. I bought him an extra controller. I bought him some games. I bought him the VR helmet and the motion controllers. And at the same time I was in there, I happened to pick up another Xbox Slim and some other stuff. So I spent a lot of money. I don't know the exact dollar amount, but I've spent a lot of money. I'll just put it that way.
Did you have a security guard to go back to your car with you?
Yeah. What's funny is it's like these new consoles that are coming out. And I love that name, Mr. Tushi. I got to know the origin of his name though. Why he's Mr. Tushi. I like that. I just love that. But I mean, you know, it's like I've dropped several $1,000 stubs, you know, at one time. But here's the thing: it's gaming. It's my passion. The other thing, it's like these new consoles coming out. Some people are like, John, how do you afford all this stuff? Well, I knew these consoles were coming out like over a year ago. So what I did is I started setting a little money back, you know, because what a lot of people do, they wait till you're 2 months out. And Of course, we don't know the price of these new consoles, but you got a general idea of what they're going to be in: $400, $500, $600, and then you're going to buy an extra controller, unless you just want to use your old controllers. And then you're going to pick up a few games, and you may buy some other bells and whistles, along with it. So you kind of have an idea what you're going to spend. So every generation, when these consoles launch, I set a little bit money back. So right now I've got enough money saved. So when they launch these new consoles, I can go out and get the Xbox Series X, paid for, pay it all off, pay off the PS5. And the reason I can do that is because we've known about it for so long. So I started saving.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, say, I'll be honest, I haven't saved up for the next console at all yet, but I should be getting one by the end of the year.
It's really not that bad. We do it, and not to get in everybody's bills, but we do it in real life with other things. If you have to pay your bill or your mortgage or your car payment, you have to save for that. You have to budget for that. So you have to have a budget for your gaming as well. So you just set some money. I've always got money set aside for my gaming hobbies. And also, so I have money set aside. Sometimes I can do nice things for people in the community, like buy them some game codes. We've done that on Next Level Gaming, where I've purchased some game codes and we've get it out to some of our listeners. Or if I can help somebody out with, a console or different things like that, or controllers, I've done that before. But you just have to, like anything else, you got a budget for it,
Oh, most definitely. I mean, to be fair, before I get an Xbox Series X, I need to upgrade and get a 4K TV. To be fair, I don't have one.
Now, what really helps Stubz is my wife, Shamra. She's a big gamer like me, and she games on all the different consoles. And of course, she works too. She's got a good job. We both work. So she helps too. She brings a lot to the table. I mean, not only she's my wife, but she's my best friend. She's my gaming partner. We do a lot of co-op games together. There was a game on the 360 that her and I played, and maybe you could help me think of it. It was by DICE. It was makers of Battlefield. There was a co-op shooter game, and I can't remember what the name of that was.
You're on about, is it where you play as cops and robbers?
No, you're both. No. It's both military, but I can't remember the name of it. But it's by DICE, or it's by EA. It's published by EA, and it's a co-op shooter. It's been years ago, but her and I, we love couch co-op. That's one thing that these companies, I think all of them could do a better job of. There's nothing wrong with multiplayer and playing online, but let's face it, we live in a fast-paced world. Some of us work lots of hours. Some of us have family, kids, church, synagogues to go to. You may be in a band somewhere. Maybe you've got some other side hustle you've got going on. So, it's kind of hard. We don't all get home at the same time. Some of us live in the UK. Some of us live in the United States or Australia. So we have these different time zones. So sometimes playing online is not very feasible all the time. So it's kind of nice if you do have family, or if you have a wife that likes to game. It's nice to have couch co-op games. And I've noticed that even though the few couch co-op games that are out there, like you're playing them, and like only one of you will get the achievements. Like there have been games where I've been playing with my wife, and because I'm the primary account, I'm signed in, I'm getting all these achievements. She's getting nothing. So they need to have it to where, and there's a lot of games that are like that. If you're both signed in and you're playing co-op with your wife or your kids, you both should be unlocking achievements. If you're going, you both should be unlocking trophies, not just one or the primary account signed in. That's,
definitely.
Yeah,
that could be an upgrade. I mean, I don't know if there's a way of suggesting it to Xbox. I don't know.
Right. It's just something that I've noticed. But I love couch co-op. There's nothing better. We used to have LAN parties years ago where people would come over and we're all connected. But I love couch co-op. I probably like that more than multiplayer.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is it's getting games that actually offer couch co-op. A lot of them have stopped doing it,
Right. I mean, some of the great games, like some of the I can't remember some of the Sega Rally, like on Sega Rally, you could go split screen, and there was nothing better than, being able to play on your Saturn or your Dreamcast, playing a race or split screen, against your friend, Um, yeah, I used to have friends come over. We had the steering wheels. We get the steering wheels out. And at the time, we didn't have the fancy setup. So we had the steering wheels with the suction cups, so we would get our beer out of the refrigerator. We'd suction cup our steering wheel to the table, and sit back and do some Sega Rally, compete against each other. Great times,
Yeah, sadly that's a thing that's disappeared, isn't it? You don't really get that anymore, do you?
No, but that is one thing that, especially on our show, Next Level Gaming, the Amico console that's coming out, which you've probably heard of.
Yep.
It gets
and
mentioned
Tommy at least
What's
two
that,
times. It gets mentioned at least 2 or 3 times every NLG show.
Oh yeah, what I'm kind of liking about the Amico is that not only is it family centric, but it's kind of bringing back that old time feeling of playing games with, your family and friends. It's not all about the graphics. And like they said, they're not competing with the big three, they're doing their own thing. And, that's kind of some of the things that's one of the reasons I'm purchasing that console as well. I've got the Founders Edition that I've pre-ordered, so I'm actually looking forward to that. Now they've delayed the console; it comes out next April, because we've got all this COVID stuff. Now it could come out sooner if things turn around, but they've just every asset or facet of the business right now for Amico is put them a little bit behind schedule. But I'm still looking very much forward to playing that when it comes out.
I have had a look at it. I'm gonna have to look at it a bit more. I'm not sure yet.
Right.
If it be my thing, but it could be a very good thing as well for a lot of these indie games to jump on.
Now, the only thing, and I haven't really, I wasn't on Next Level Gaming's last episode, but the only downside that I could, because everything, has got its pros and cons. When these next gen systems really kick off, to be honest with you, I'm super excited about the PS5, and it's not my excitement isn't coming because it's going to be the most powerful console or it's this and that, because I know that this last generation that the PlayStation games I've played have been superb. From the Uncharted games to The Last of Us, to Spider-Man, to Horizon Zero Dawn, to Neo, and Bloodborne. Just these outstanding games that are like my favorites of all time. I know that PlayStation's going to deliver on the game front. So that being said, I know the quality of the games that their studios put out. I know how satisfied, MLB The Show, which actually Xbox fans will be graced with MLB The Show this year because they are making it for PlayStation and Xbox. So if anybody out there loves baseball on Xbox, I'd highly recommend getting MLB The Show. It's a great baseball game.
Because you're a big fan of that. Are they releasing it on Xbox as well? Is it because have they said the license fee's too high to afford?
No, it's not because they were confronted by Major League Baseball, and in order to get this deal through, they had to publish it on multi-platforms. It had nothing to do with them not having enough money because they've been paying the money. It had nothing to do with the money part of it. They just that was part of the deal that they were to publish it on all platforms, and so that's why they're having to do that. But the end result is that Xbox is going to get a great baseball game, because I've got Xbox not having a baseball game for 7 or 8 years was part of the reason that forced me to the reason I got a PlayStation. Years ago, when the Xbox One came out, they were lacking a good AAA baseball game, and I begged and pleaded with Phil, Aaron Greenberg, over and over. And, baseball here, I mean, how you've got football, or what we call soccer over here, but we've got football in the UK.
Yeah.
Baseball's been like the American pastime. It's like one of America's greatest sports. And to not have a baseball game on the console was really bugging me. So I tried to rally and try to get a baseball game going, but I was kind of shunned from the community, and I was told that people don't like baseball and it doesn't sell well enough, and blah, 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 blah. So and all I wanted, Stubbs, was a baseball game, something so simple. So after years and years, I mean, imagine not having like FIFA on a console or something.
I'd love it to disappear.
Right. But a game that you love, imagine, that I'm a huge baseball fan, and imagine year after year, there's no AAA baseball game. And the closest thing that they give you is a bobblehead baseball game, which is fun to play, but it's not a realistic baseball sim. So, I thought, well, I went out one night and I bought a PlayStation, and I came home and my wife's eyes were real big, and she thought, oh my God, I didn't think you'd ever buy a PlayStation. And I said, times are changing, honey. I said, I want a baseball game, and nobody's listening. Nobody cares. And year in, year out, no baseball. And that was a huge, even back on the Commodore 64, I played the game Hardball. On most of my consoles, even on the Sega Saturn or the Dreamcast, baseball games were huge for me. So, a console not having baseball just didn't seem right. So that's kind of my story on how I got into the PlayStation universe. That's how it all started. And but I'm glad that happened, because it made me more of a well-rounded gamer. That's and good. I know that not everybody can afford it. And everybody's like, well, not everybody has your money, John, or not everybody can buy every console. No, you're right. But for those of us that can, I'm glad I did, because it opened my eyes, and my hatred that I had for PlayStation went away. And I've been graced and blessed with being able to play some of the best games of this generation on that system. Hands down, there's just no contest.
I know they've got some really good games. I mean, I did have a PS4 for a couple of years, but at that point in time, I was literally a Destiny 1 player, and that's all I didn't play any. I missed out on the exclusives because I just played Destiny, right? Which you don't do now,
Did you spend countless hours shooting at engrams in the cave?
Yep.
Yeah.
I did, yes. Well, it's been nice this show has, John. I reckon if you're up for it in the future, we will do a part 2, because I don't think we've even touched on half of it.
No, I'm glad you had me on the show. I mean, I've got so much I want to talk about. And I guess if there was anything I'd want people to know about me, is that beyond the goofiness and silliness, I'm a very caring and loving person, and I would do anything to help anybody out. And that I am a gamer at heart. I'm not just saying that. I do still love my Xbox. I love my PlayStation. I love the Nintendo. I believe that there's a place for all three of those in my life, as well as everybody else's. I don't like the console warring thing. I don't like arguing over silly things. If this happens, maybe what if this happens? I like talking about things that are tangible, that are definitive. There's life is short. We've got all this COVID going on, the virus and all this stuff we're having. The world's a complete mess right now. And for a lot of us, gaming is like a sanctuary where you can go to and you can get away from all that. So I'd like to keep my sanctuary as happy as possible. So, arguing over controllers and what consoles got more teraflops, and, I don't like the shape of that console. Well, fine. You're not buying it, are you? So it goes on and on,
Definitely does. Now, Indy's got one question. What's your top top game of the generation or games?
Ooh. Okay, well, top games. Bloodborne is going to have to be like right at like maybe the top of my list. I'm going to have to also. I'm going to have to say Bloodborne. I'm going to have to say that after playing The Last of Us Part 2, that would be one of my top games. I would have to say that Ori and the Blind Forest.
Nice pick.
Nice I've got Ori and the Will of the Wisp. I haven't played yet, and I guess Generation. I'm going to go back to Xbox One too. Okay, so just in the beginning. So, but yeah, I would say Ori and the Blind Forest. The Yakuza games. All the Yakuza games are great. I love Halo. I used to be a real big Halo fan back in the Halo 3, the Halo Reach days. And I'm hoping this new Halo, I hope they go back in that direction. I don't know if they are. I've played the current Halos as well. I'm not as big a fan of those as the older ones, but I still love my Halo. The Uncharted game, of course. I love racing games. So anything Forza Horizon, Gran Turismo, those are up my alley. And RPGs, Witcher 3, Dragon Quest, Persona 5, all those games, just wonderful games, and of course the little kid in me, I've always loved my Call of Duty, so I hope I didn't cut out.
Good.
I was walking around the room here, but yeah, and I love platform games. So any kind of platform games, and there's really not a genre of game that I really don't like,
which is good.
Yeah,
Definitely
now
good.
Some of the over-the-top strategy type games, the RTS, I'm not big on those, but just about every other, whether it's sports, and that's my problem. That's what gets me into trouble. I love sports. I love racing. I love RPGs are like my favorite. You give me a good RPG that I can sink my teeth into for hundreds of hours, I'll get that every time, No,
it's definitely a good, well-rounded gamer and not stuck to one platform, which is good.
Oh, and Sunset Overdrive. I tell you what, Sunset Overdrive, and also I got a Rise Son of Rome. I actually learned, but Sunset Overdrive. The humor in Sunset Overdrive, I loved. Insomniac, I just love their games, and they did a fantastic job with Spider-Man on the PlayStation. But Sunset Overdrive, there were some scenes in there where they were doing some RPG reenactments, and it was just, that game was great. I played online with a bunch of guys on Xbox, and we played for hours. I absolutely love that game. It should have got a lot more support than it did from the community, to be honest with you.
I'll be honest,
that was a real good game. Yeah.
I've still got to try that. I've not tried it.
But so I guess those are some of my games, and along with my retro games, and of course I buy these mini consoles. I got so much to talk about, Stubbs. I know people are probably getting bored. They're probably like, "Oh God, he doesn't ever shut up."
No, not getting bored. No, you've got plenty to talk about. I just think we might have to do it in the part 2, because we might end up with a 4-hour show.
All right. Well, I just wanted to break the record. Didn't Dreadpool have a record or something?
It was.
Who was it? I like breaking records.
3 hours and 56 seconds.
Right.
If you want to go that long, we can.
Well, no. I like breaking records, man. Especially when you're that close. It's like when I'm getting close to 1,000 gamer score, or that platinum trophy, man. You just can't quit, I'll leave it up to you, buddy. I'm fine. I've got tons of stuff to talk about. You can ask me whatever you want. I'm an open book, buddy. So
That says keep going. Okay, we'll keep going then. We will.
All right, yeah,
I
there
get
we
moaned at
go.
sometimes. People go, "Are you still going? Are you still going?"
Yeah,
I can't.
Stubz for president. Woo woo, Stubz. Yeah.
Okay, then. Here's another one.
All
This,
right.
this was from Mr. Tushi as well.
Oh, I
He's-
like this Mr. Tucci guy. Yeah.
What's your first ever pre-order?
Oh my God. Ooh, that's a tough one. My first pre-order. Ooh. I don't know. I think I'm too old to answer that. my memory. That one's my first pre-order. Wow. Man, that's my first. I don't know what my first. I really don't know.
Yeah. Was this an LG show?
Yes.
Just put,
Oh yeah, there's Mike. What is this? An LG show? Oh yeah, it's in our blood, man. We just don't stop. We keep going. You know.
Yeah, they are very good shows. Even when they run over, they're very good.
You know, and I don't mean to be dirty or nothing online, but it's kind of like when you're going to the restroom. It's that last little bit that means all the world.
The memory tester in Indies call it.
Yeah, I don't know what my first, the pre-order thing, usually like when I hear it, like at GameStop, I was at there today, and I was purchasing some merchandise, and I pre-ordered that Marvel Avengers game, and I got the Ultimate Edition, whatever, with all the swag and everything. And I signed a list, there's a list to be notified, when these new systems come out for pre-order. And I'm on like the top of the list. And, and I checked both boxes for Series X and PlayStation 5, because the minute they call me, I'm leaving work and I'm heading straight to GameStop, or I'm paying over the phone or whatever, and I'm buying those suckers, those pre-orders. But some of my most memorable pre-orders were like Halo Reach. I remember the launch of Halo Reach. In fact, the line was so long at GameStop. I mean, it was all wrapped around like a snake inside GameStop, and then outside the front doors. Then it was blocking the doors to Starbucks, and people were angry because they couldn't get their caffeine, and they're going nuts, and hitting everybody and kicking and fighting. And the line wrapped around the building or whatever. And in fact, they had a display case thing with the Halo Reach game inside it and a digital clock that it was a countdown timer. And they knew I loved Halo so much, so they gave that to me that night. So that's probably one of my most memorable pre-order, and launch events that I went to.
That's good. Saying that though, they're normally quite hard to get hold of, because shops won't normally give you them. So you were very lucky there.
Right.
Even if it means them chucking it. But I've heard stories where shops are literally like GameStop chucking them in the bin, but they won't give you it.
Yeah, I mean, I've got big cart when Batman Arkham Asylum came out. I've got the full cutout that was on display inside GameStop, because they know that I love my games. So whenever I see something that catches my eye, I'll like talk to the guy or gal that I know there that managed the store, and I'm like, "Hey, man, after that game comes out, what are you going to do with that poster? Or what are you going to do with that figurine? Or what are you going to do with this display?" And they're like, "You probably want it, don't you?" And I said, "If I can get it, yes." So
isn't that trying though?
Right. That's not anti-consumer either.
No,
no. That's just right. But yeah, Stubbs, do you have any questions that you'd like? Is there anything you'd like to know about me?
What's the worst ever game you've played? Because I've heard some stories. Do you know Dirty J from Retro Renegades?
Yes.
I've heard stories about him, and the game Pitfall gives him nightmares still.
Really?
He hates it.
Why? That's like one of my favorites.
You have to message him and say you love it.
I don't know how you could hate it. All you're doing is swinging on vines. You're jumping across quicksand, landing on crocodile heads. I mean, I don't know. It's got groovy music. I don't know how you could hate that.
I'm sure that's the game he said. It's Pitfall.
Pitfall.
I'm sure
No. Oh, let me think. Some of the worst games that I've played. Well, My Name is Mayo would have to be up there. And it's not, I mean, to be honest with you, if you can publish a game tapping on a mayonnaise jar and get trophies just left and right, I mean, seriously, within 20 minutes, you got a platinum trophy. And all you do is tap your icon on a mayonnaise jar, so there was that game. And what else have I played?
I've just been corrected. It was Pit Fighter. He hated.
It was what? Pit Fighter. Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Not bad. I'm trying to think of some absolute games that there was a game for the Atari 2600. It was called Hide and Seek. This was the absolute worst game. And what you did, you would play like me and my brother would play side by side co-op, and you were not supposed to screen cheat. So my brother would like close his eyes and like turn away, and you would take your little joystick and you'd move your little character inside this house on different levels around the house or outside the house. And you could, like, if you got your character in a certain spot, the character would just disappear into like the background or behind the couch. And then you'd say, okay. And then you'd say, open your eyes. And the guy or whoever playing next to you would have to try to find you within a certain amount of time. It was horrible. It was an absolute horrible game. Should have never been made.
It sounds it.
Horrible. I mean, if you're going to play hide and go seek, you might as well do it in real life. This was horrible. It was so bad. I played it. That and just recently Sharknado VR. I mean, yeah, I love the VR games, and I love that series Sharknado because of the over the top humor and comedy in it. So I bought this game and did a review of it on Next Level Gaming on the show one night. And it's just it's absolutely horrible. It's got one song during the whole game. The graphics are some of the worst games I've seen on a current gen system, and even on a PS VR game, it's just horrible. I mean, I don't know what they were doing. It's absolutely horrible. It is one of the worst games. But what was funny about it, there's always something in even the worst game that I find myself that captivates me. And I end up playing even bad games. And I still ended up playing and beating the whole thing. But it's just absolutely horrible. Nobody buy it. I mean, seriously, it's horrible.
So that's an interesting question. What actually got you into playing VR games initially? Was it because I know you like your VR games? Was it on the PlayStation, or have you got the Oculus as well?
Well, no, I don't have the Oculus. What it was is that when all this VR stuff really started becoming popular, and I was debating on what to get, Oculus, PlayStation VR, some of the other choices. And PlayStation VR was, for the most part, more affordable than the other, avenues to try VR. So, of course, before the system came out, I really didn't know what to think. I thought, oh man, is this going to be a gimmick? Is this going to be, and even though I love the Kinect for Xbox, I said, is this going to be another Kinect? Is this going to be something that fades away with time? Is this even, because I'm more of a hardcore gamer, so is this even going to be something that I like? Is this something just a casual gamer going to like? And I thought, well, I've always wanted to be in a video game, and I thought this is the way to do it. So I'd watched the movie Ready Player One, and all this stuff. And I thought, man, I've just got to try. So I ended up buying a PlayStation VR, and I was just blown away. The Oculus and some of the other ones may have better resolutions, but this PlayStation VR does one heck of a job. And it's offered me and my family hours of entertainment. I mean, I'm just blown away, to be having that helmet on and the headphones, and you can't hear or see anything around you, and you're inside the game and you're looking around 360 degrees. And I'm thinking, wow, this is really cool. I mean, coming from the Atari 2600 back in 1977 to VR, I mean, that's like a huge leap, you know, and it almost brought tears to my eyes. I thought, wow, the technology, I'm actually in the game, you know, so that's kind of how I got hooked into it.
Yeah, that's very, because VR is one of them. I think everyone needs to try it. I mean, I've only tried VR once, and I was in a holiday camp in Spain, and I've never seen this. They had a games room for the bloody Fortnite and FIFA and that, but they had these VR seats, so I had to go, and I'm told I played the wrong game. I played Drive Club.
Right.
It wasn't very good. Have you tried Drive Club?
Right.
Whether it's
I haven't tried Drive Club. I've tried Gran Turismo Sport, the VR section, but I have not tried the Drive Club at all. I had already played Drive Club and got through most of the races and everything, so I never tried, you know.
Yeah, my experience wasn't very good though, because it's either my eyes are crap. Because when I had the headset on, as I was going around corners, my eyes were blurring. I don't know whether it's because the VR's right in front of you,
right,
or I've got shit eyesight. I've got crap eyesight, probably. Maybe, I don't know. But I was told that the game's improved. Apparently, that was one of the first games they made on VR. So it probably wasn't the best game to try, but it didn't really have a big selection. But it is something I want to try eventually, VR properly. But it made me dizzy though. I'll tell you that. After it made me dizzy.
Now there are some games that I do pretty good for the most part. The games that give me a little funny feeling are like I've got Farpoint with the laser gun. It's kind of like the first person shooters where you're actually playing and you're kind of moving around and looking at the same time. You're doing multiple directions at the same time. Because as you're moving, you know, you're like, I stand up when I'm playing that game. So I'm moving with the controller, the analog stick on the laser gun. So in the video game, you're moving around and looking, but you know that you're just standing in one place. You're not actually moving. So that kind of sometimes that messes with your mind's thinking one thing, but you know, deep down, you're not moving, and it kind of it's almost like being seasick a little bit. You can have that, but for most part, I don't get there's only a couple games that bother me a little bit, and after playing them, I got used to it. But actually, the rest of the games I handle fairly well. There's a couple games like Astrobot and Moss, and those are like two of my favorite games. If anybody has a PlayStation VR, I highly recommend buying Moss or Astrobot. And there's a new Astrobot coming out with the PlayStation 5 pretty soon, which you can use your old VR headset with the PlayStation 5 for those that are concerned about that. But those two games, Stubbs, are outstanding, and you sit and you play those, and they're calm, they're relaxing, they've got a good storyline, and you can just look all around, and there's no dizzy feeling. So there's a lot of games that are using the technology in a really good way, you know.
That's good to hear. Do you hear that, people? PlayStation were doing a pro-consumer thing there.
Yeah.
You can use your old headset.
Right. You can use your old headset. Right.
Unless they make a PlayStation VR 2.1 for the PS5, but they haven't announced yet.
But you know what? And if they do, here's the reason why. If they did, and if they came out with a new VR headset, I wouldn't think that'd be anti-consumer at all, because it would be improved. So just like the controller, anytime you introduce new hardware that's better than the previous, I don't see that as a waste of money. And if you're a gamer and it improves the playability, or it gives developers more options to utilize with the software with the hardware better, I mean, I'm all for it. You know,
most definitely. You know, it is. So, do you prefer Mario or Zelda? So, sorry, wrong question. Sorry, Mario or Sonic? That's another Mr. Tucci question.
Ooh, shoot. Man, there's something that I really like about Mario jumping up and going, "That's a me," and hitting the coins and everything. There's something, but then there's Sonic, and he's always excited and real fast. So I don't know. I'm going to say a tie with those two.
Okay, that's fair. I mean,
Now,
Mario.
If Zelda and Mario, I would pick Zelda.
Oh, okay.
Or Link. Or either, I love the Zelda. Zelda is like a huge franchise that I love.
So, have you tried? Now, my presumption here would be you haven't tried this game, or you don't play these games. But do you like Pokemon?
I don't. No. I've never understood the thing. I know you're laughing.
I was right then. Yeah.
I've never understood. Now, don't just hear me out. I don't get the Pokemon thing. I remember when people were playing that Pokemon Go, man, a few years ago, whatever. And I was driving
idiots too.
And I see these goofballs, and they're, out there in the summertime in flip-flops, sandals, and got little canteens filled up with water, and they're looking for Pokemons. Their cell phones tell them that there's a Pokemon out in the field. So they've got their cars pulled over, and they're just walking around out in the field somewhere, or people are almost getting ran over by vehicles. They're looking for Pokemons, and it says it's out in the street, and they don't look both ways. They just walk out because they want the Pokemon. So I don't know. I don't get nothing wrong with Pokemon. There's just some things that are even a little too weird for even me. And Pokemon's one of those.
Oh, that's fair enough. But I'll bring you around to the point about people walking out on roads. Due to what we call the T virus currently, people literally do walk because of the social distancing, and they walk on the road and think there's no cars there and look at you like you shouldn't be there.
Right.
Wow. Mr. Tushi's had some experiences in his lorry where people are walking down country lanes with their earphones in, can't hear a thing, and he's in a big Arctic behind them.
Oh, jeez. Oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah, he filmed a little bit of it, but not the bit where she turned around and jumped out of her skin when she realised the big lorry was behind her.
Well, the world's bad enough as it is. Like earlier, well, I was so excited when you sent me the invite for the show tonight. I was actually playing my Ghosts and Goblins, and I hate to admit it because, whenever you're a seasoned gamer, but you got to admit when you do something goofy. And as I was playing my arcade machine, I was trying to hurry up and get past this level before I got on the show with you. And I actually got a video game injury. I've actually jammed my index finger.
Really?
Yeah. Running over to the computer. So yeah, I was like, man down. I was like, so now my finger's like really jammed. So I'm going to have to go light on it tonight,
Fair enough. So what arcade machine is that you've actually got, and have you got more than one?
Oh yes, I've got more than one. I've got a Star Wars 1-up arcade machine. I've also got the Final Fight 1944. What's the other? Strider and Ghost and Goblins combo. There's 4 games in that one. So I've got those two. I'm also looking into. They've got some X arcade machines. There's like 2 or 3 brands. But there's an X arcade machine, and I think they're, I don't know, anywhere from $3,000 to $5,000, but they can have like 3,000, 4,000 games installed on them. I'm looking into getting something like that.
Nice.
And It's a real high quality arcade machine because I love the 1-ups, but you figure you're paying $300, $400, $500 for these after a while, even though you have like a mini arcade. After you could buy a big one and just spend your $3,000 or $4,000 and you could have 3,000 like games all in one place. And you can it has Wi-Fi capability and internet. You can download games. So I'm kind of looking into something like that, because I've got a game that I've been dying to play and I need the rollerball to do it. And it's Marble Madness. It's one of my favorite games ever at the arcade as well. And actually, Mark Cerny from PlayStation, from Sony, he actually developed that game.
Really?
Yeah, Mark Cerny did. So, but that's one of it has that roller ball and you're guiding that marble down the maze. I love that. And but yeah, I'm looking into getting one of those real nice arcade setups.
Does sound good. I mean, the arcade machines. I mean, it's the thing. It's the thing kids don't know about now, isn't it? They don't go to the arcade. The only time I ever got an arcade machine is when we go on holiday to the seaside.
Right. Well, if you think about it, if I can buy an arcade machine that, let's say, has 3,000 games on it, Stubbs, let's say that you buy these one-up arcade machines, and let's say they each have 3 games on them, each one. So you would have to buy 1,000 one-up arcade machine games with 3 games on it to get your 3,000 games. Wow. So 1,000 times $400 is a lot more than the $3,000 you would spend on having your 3,000 games all in one. And the quality of the X arcade machines is like phenomenal. I mean, everything from the joystick, and you can have different configurations from like 2-player setups to 4-player setups, and you can customize these and have what games you want shipped on them. And then you can also download onto the software stuff, other games as well. So that's kind of the route I'm going. And that would be real good, especially for people that love retro gaming. I think that would be like an awesome setup to have.
That does sound like the better option, most definitely. Right. So have you got big collections of figures?
Do I have a what?
Do you have like a big collection of like figures and statues?
Yes, I've got.
And have you got any favorite? Have you got a favorite or favorites?
Yeah, I've got a huge Halo collection. I have about 45 Halo McFarlane figurines. Nice. So that's kind of my little pride and joy. I love Halo, and everything from the Grunt to Master Chief to the different Spartans to the Elites. I've got those. Most of them are still packaged up. I don't even have them unpackaged, because like I said, I like collecting things as well. I have some things, a lot of times when I buy something, I'll buy 2 of something, one for display and one to keep in a package for a later date,
Yeah, pretty much like me, but I think you're a bit more into it than I am. You are.
And one of my favorite things is my Mario remote control RC car. I love this thing. I can sit back and, this little Mario driving a race car, and you can speed around upstairs. I'll drive him around my game room. It's awesome. It's
nice. That sounds really good, Anders.
Oh, yeah.
I bet you can't buy them anymore, can you?
Well, I got that I got that this year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I believe I got that one at GameStop. But I've got, I've also got a huge gaming shirt collection. I bet you I've got 50 gaming shirts at least, if not more, But, I'm like a big kid, Stubbs. I'm telling you, like I said, I'll be 48 in November, and I'm still like a big kid, man. I love my toys.
Oh, most definitely. I mean, they always say the inner kid never leaves you.
Right.
I'm the same still at Christmas. I love my Christmas presents and birthday presents.
I do too.
I do. Definitely. Dad reckons he got an injury playing Dead or Alive.
Yeah, it's funny. It's it's the same thing. Like, I mean, you've seen videos where people have stumbled into the television set, playing the Wii, or whatever, doing. I remember when I was doing the Kinect, and I was just doing that Just Dance, and I was doing Soldier Boy or something, and I was dancing to it and acting kind of goofy. Well, my hands got caught up like the ceiling fan right above me, so just silly things that you do, But yeah. But I don't know. I have a lot of fond memories. I mean, there's some old games that I don't even know if some people know. Like back on the Commodore 64 days, there was a game, Maniac Mansion, and they've made several different remakes of that. But Maniac Mansion was a game that I loved. There was a game called Paperboy where you delivered newspapers. That was a
I remember
game.
Paperboy. That was a good game. Yes.
Yeah.
That was.
And then you had games like Myst and Rendezvous with Rama. Myst was a really good game. It was kind of like they would show you this beautiful scenery and it had like these puzzles and you had to work your way through it. And there was like a mystery behind. And I kind of like games like that. But I don't know. I just love all kinds of games. I'm a big Castlevania fan. I just love the Castlevania series. I wish they get back to like the first two Castlevania games because I think, in my opinion, those two are the best Castlevania games ever made. I liked that Metroidvania styled, game. Just really a big fan of that.
Indies agreeing with you. Paperboy.
Oh yeah.
Monkey Island.
Oh, Monkey Island, yeah.
I think I played that on the 360. I think I could be wrong. I can't remember. Was it on the 360?
Man, I can't remember some of these games, Stubs. Down through the years, there's so many. There's like ROMs of games. There's so many. I mean, they've had so many different versions on different systems. I mean, I can't keep up with everything. I've forgotten a lot. Ninja Gaiden was a big game that I liked. Kid Icarus. Of course, that's my Double Dragon 1 and 2. I was a big Nintendo fan. I love those games. So I was a huge Nintendo fan back in the day.
That's good to hear. Nintendo. I've actually got a Nintendo in a minute. I've got Nintendo 3DS.
Oh, awesome.
Which I need to play more. Now, I can't see the 3D. I have to turn it off.
Do you? Okay.
I can't actually see it.
That kind of bothered me too on the 3DS. There's something about it that was messing with my eyes. Yeah.
Yeah, it's supposed to come out of the screen at you.
Right.
It just gives me a headache, so I turn the 3D off. I do, but I need to play that more. I've got Super Mario on there. Got Donkey Kong. I have got a couple of Pokemon games, but I've never played them. It came with the system, so never played with. Well, because I bought it second hand. You get quite a few games of it, but it's something I've got to play more of. It is.
Oh yeah,
was it on the 360? I'll tell you where it probably was. I played it. I used to be big in when they used to make the iPod Touches, and I'm pretty sure Monkey Island was on the iPod Touch. I could be wrong. I played it somewhere. I know I did.
But yeah, it's just there's so many games when I think back that I mean, that's when you know that you really love gaming. When you think back and you can just games. I mean, they take you back in time, to how things used to be. Like just great memories of playing with friends or family, and hopefully, even if things change in the future with gaming, with all this streaming and services stuff, which I'm not a big fan of, but even if that's the way things are going, or if that's the way things end up going, I'm hoping that they still keep a traditional way of gaming too.
I think they will. I mean,
it'd be a sad day for me, Stubbs. It's one thing to kind of change and do a few things and offer some different ways of doing it, but to totally phase out a way that I've been gaming for 30, 40 years, I have a hard time with that,
Yeah, no, I don't think it's something they will do, because he referenced Phil or Aaron they did say that a while back. One of them did anyway. There will be another generation after this. These are just options. But you got the conspiracies out there saying, no, it's all a con. This is the last Xbox.
Right.
I know their main focus isn't on selling hardware; it's about selling subscriptions now. But they still want to sell the consoles. You know what I mean? They might say they're not bothered, but I think they are. Because they kept saying, "Oh, PlayStation isn't our competition," but they kind of backtrack a lot of the time when they make comments about their rivals. You see what I mean?
Well, and yeah, I don't agree with that. I think that they're all competition with one another.
They are.
PlayStation and Xbox are in competition. To say that they aren't is just not right. Microsoft may be like going down different avenues to expand their user base and do different things, but they're still competition. I mean, if not now, they will be later. I mean, that all these companies have always, like Nintendo and Sega, they've always been competition there, which is good because if you don't have, and that's why I like that they're taking different routes, because that gives people choice. I hear so many, one of the big things that I really have a hard time with, people will say, John, exclusive games are anti-consumer, and it drives me batty because I
actually made a video on this, right? And it's a bit clickbaity, don't get me wrong. It actually said that in the thumbnail, it said exclusive games hurt gamers. Now,
right.
It was only because I've got a theory that one day I would love all games to be on all systems. But then in the same breath, I did say that it's Fantasyland and it will never happen. But exclusives do sell systems because PlayStation have proved it and Nintendo have proved it.
Right. And the thing is, when you go to buy a product, a lot of people don't like exclusives because it's not on their console of choice. I mean, I'll just cut through all the rubbish. Most people don't like exclusives and say they're anti-consumer because they don't have that game. When you go to buy something, you have to give people a reason to buy something. Like, Ford and Chevy, they offer different packages on their cars, different types of motors, different types of transmissions. They're geared differently. Some of them have a different load capacity. I'm sorry, but if there was a game if all the games were on all the consoles, that would be horrible. The whole reason that we have the video game market has been so successful is that we do have exclusives. We do have, if I'm selling a product, the best way to sell it is to offer something that the other person doesn't have. So I like having choice. That makes the video game world go round and round. I don't want, just think of it this way. I don't want Halo on PlayStation. I don't want Uncharted on Xbox. Why would I want that? I want these companies to have exclusive games that sell and drive their consoles and give people a reason to buy their services. I mean, imagine if just Microsoft let Halo on the PlayStation console. What that would do. I mean, I'm sorry, but that's not a smart move. But the thing, I've went round and round with a few people on this, but my honest to goodness, exclusives matter and they drive sales. It's when you think of Xbox, what do you think of? You think of Forza, you think of Halo. When you think and Gears, when you think of PlayStation, you think of Uncharted, The Last of Us, Bloodborne, for example, God of War. Those are what kind of define a system. You've got to have that. I think people are being petty when they say it's anti-consumer. It's not. It's not being anti-consumer to the Xbox fans by keeping exclusives on that system.
Exactly. It's like Indy's just said, exclusives give each console identity, or it will be just like DVD players. He's right.
Right. And there's nothing special about it anymore. One day if you just have one controller and you come home and there's let's say there's no Xbox, no PlayStation, let's say it's something else. I don't know, Odyssey 3000 or whatever. That's, whatever the service is. And you just have one controller and you just play. I'm telling you, it'd be a sad day. I mean,
so here's one for you.
Yeah.
Say, for instance, 2013 didn't happen. And say, for instance, Xbox dominated and they were currently like PlayStation are now. Do you think gaming would be where it is now? Say, do you think, here's a question, how best to put it? Do you think services like xCloud and Game Pass would exist?
Not as much. And I'll tell you why. I noticed this with Xbox and PlayStation just from sitting back when all this stuff was going on, because I've been a huge Xbox fan. I got the day one edition, huge. I rallied behind Xbox. I tried to fight for the mantle, and defend it and everything during the hard times. And it just got to the point to where they weren't delivering on some of the games that I wanted. And I looked over at the Sony side and, the games like baseball and, the things like The Last of Us and Uncharted. And I just felt like I was really missing out on some things. And, first of all, I love the Kinect with the Xbox when it launched. But, the problem is, the whole problem with Xbox, the reason why, they came out with a console that was inferior as far as power, and it was $100 more. And they didn't give you any option of buying the Kinect separately from the beginning. That's what doomed it from the beginning. True. It is. And because the same thing's going to happen. If you put out two products and now this time though, these systems are so far up in the terabytes and things, I don't know if it's going to matter much, but when you got a console that's struggling to do 1080p and doing different things like the high def, and it's $100 more, that's what a lot of gamers had issue with. It wasn't that they didn't like Xbox. It's not that they didn't like their games. It's just the fact that you put something out there that's $100 more expensive and it's inferior. And I really think that they've had such a rough ride, because I noticed that when the NPD would come out and they would announce numbers on NPD, it got to the point where Xbox finally said, hey, we're not posting any more numbers. There's more to it than this. It's about engagement. It's about this. To me, now that I hope nobody gets offended, to me, that was a big goalpost move. They just didn't want to post numbers because they were being beat every month. Now, this route that they're taking with xCloud and streaming and all this, Microsoft's a big software company, man. That's what they do with PC. If you look at their gaming division, they're leaning heavy on PC. They're putting games, day one on Game Pass and PC, which I don't agree with. I'm sorry. I don't think you do that to your AAA exclusives. I don't think you just hand them out like that in the beginning. And I think you need to take care of those more. But I really don't think Xbox would be going that route if they hadn't had I feel like that they couldn't win the traditional way, so they are changing the way they're playing the game. The problem I have with all the streaming and the services, that's fine if they want to change the way that they're playing the game, but don't force the streaming and stuff like that on gamers like me that don't want that.
Exactly.
And I think people misunderstand me. I have no ill will towards Xbox. I'm going to buy the Series X. I'm going to keep supporting them. But just because you're not successful one way, don't try to change the whole gaming industry, because Sony and Nintendo are still doing the same thing they've been doing for years. They're not changing that much. They're still doing a traditional console and games. And I kind of like that.
Exactly. As much as I like Xbox, and I think they've come out of a lot of new games that would attract people, I still think when it comes down to people buying the new systems, I still think I still think PlayStation's going to lead the way. People, because they only have to put out a little trailer of something, and it gets millions of hits and likes and all that. I know that doesn't always translate into sales, but the branding is massive.
Well, here's the thing, Stubbs. It's like I just said. Some of us are real busy at work. Like I know some people work from home, but I don't have that luxury. And when I'm at work, I have a very dangerous job. So I'm working around robots, machinery. I'm having to work on PLCs. I'm doing electrical work inside electrical cabinets. I'm working on high voltage. So I have to be real focused at work. So like these streaming things and xCloud, I'm not going to use that ever. I mean, if my wife's playing on a console downstairs, I come upstairs or the bedrooms where I've got my other consoles and I play a game. I don't need to stream to a phone. I mean, I'm getting older. The last thing I want to do is play a game on my cell phone. I'm being honest, man. I'm not wanting to stream anything on my cell phone. I'm not going to play a game like that. Even on the Switch, I played in docked mode. I goof around with it on handheld once in a while, but I always play with it in docked mode. I don't play with it in a portable manner. I mean, you got a smaller screen. It's not as immersive. And like if you're playing a racing game or something, it's real hard to see on the Switch screen. It's not the same feeling. If I play it in docked mode, I can use my Nintendo Switch Pro controllers, which are like comfortable as heck. I mean, they're one of the best controllers I've held in my hand as far as comfort. The Nintendo Switch Pro controller, but playing it like that is just much more enjoyable. So there's a lot of people that don't. I mean, it's hard enough for a lot of grown-ups, people my age. I mean, maybe the younger generation or something, or maybe people that have time to play games at work. I don't know, but there's a lot of us that don't. And like I said, everybody needs a little time away from gaming too. You can't just do games 24/7. You got to step away and go outside and enjoy the fresh air. You need to spend time with your family, your wife. As you will know, Stubbs, you need to do those. And so this idea of being able to take your games anywhere you go and with everything, it sounds nice and grandiose, but the reality of it, there's a lot of people like me that I don't want to take my games with me you need to separate yourself from the internet. That you don't need to be connected all the time. You need to get out and enjoy life. You need to do other things too. So I understand why Microsoft's going that route, but for the longest time they stopped announcing their sales numbers and everything.
Gee, no, you are right there. Game Pass is doing well. Suddenly they announce the numbers.
Right. Now, the thing that's and what's the only concerning thing about me is like, Aaron Greenberg came out and he said that it's not really making much money right now. And to be honest with you, I figured it probably wouldn't. I mean, you're paying a small fee for hundreds of games versus paying $60 for one game. That a certain percentage of that game, like 15%, is at least going to the developer right off the bat. Definitely. You don't know where all that other, however they're dispersing that money, you don't know where that's going. And you're spreading that out between 100 games or so. It's not like, if they put newly launched games on there, it's not like all that money's going toward the newly launched games. And for them to say that,
no, that's what they're trying to tell you.
But like I said, to each their own. That's the way they're handling their business. I'm just glad that PlayStation and Nintendo aren't going down that route necessarily, because bottom line, if everybody has choices, but for me as a gamer, the one thing I want is high quality titles. I'm not so much interested about these features that I'm not going to use. I want a console it doesn't have to be the most powerful. I want something that the least can pack a punch and has good quality titles.
Oh, most definitely. You are right. I mean, it is nice how PlayStation and Nintendo are still doing the traditional route, but the new guy at Nintendo, he did say that if they ever got to that stage, they would explore the digital route and the streaming route. But I think he was only saying if Nintendo ever got, if things went downhill for them, I think they were talking.
I mean, if you look at Nintendo, what they've done, they came into this console race, so to speak, the last console on the market, and they've surpassed Xbox in sales. They are doing phenomenal. In fact, they possibly could pass up the PlayStation.
Easy.
And that's off of
comes easy.
Right. And they could easily pass that up. And that's on the least powerful system. So, I mean, throw them teraflops out the window and all that other stuff. Look at what Nintendo's done. I mean, I got to take my hats off to them. That's phenomenal. And that's without a robust online service. That's without all these streaming things, They came up with something that works for them, and they stayed true to who they were, and it's working. That's why I honestly feel the more simple you keep things, you don't need to overcomplicate things to be successful.
Oh no, it's true. I mean, the way the Xbox Game Pass works. I mean, for me, it worked because I've got the kids and that, and myself, it works.
Right.
Well, this moment in time, I'm not actually paying for it until next year. So next year, it turns into $10.99 a month. It does, as opposed to £1, and I tell you, that is what like Mike Mullers was just saying in the chat. He was saying the reason they're not making any money is because everyone's on the $1 deal or the £1 deal. Yeah, a lot of people are.
And Mike, he's a class act, man. I love him to death. And one thing that I love, I think Mike understands me too, because I'm not saying anything bad about Microsoft. I'm just saying that there is a huge customer base out there that doesn't need to play these games on their phone, or they don't have time to play all these games on Game Pass. I'm one of those guys. I don't have, and a lot of those games on a lot of them I've already played. It's just hard to get around to playing everything. And the last thing I want to do is pay for something if I'm not going to use it. So I have no problem. I'm just old school, man. Just give me my Xbox console and let me buy my games, and I'll be a happy camper. And I think Microsoft should be happy to hear that too, because that says a lot when you're willing to go out and support these different consoles and willing to pay for, I like paying for my games. I just, call me old school, but I've always felt like I'm doing my part when I do that.
Well, see, I'm the same. I have Game Pass though, but if it's like basically all the Gears of War game, people know I love Gears of War. I own all the Gears of War. Now Halo, I own all the Halos too, and it hasn't clicked with me yet, Halo. And I want really? Halo to click with me. I've got Halo 1. I've got 1 to 5.
So you've never played, you don't like it, or you haven't played it, or?
I've tried to play Halo 1. I need to play more. It just hasn't clicked with me like everyone else. It clicks with everyone else, but I own them all. I bought them all.
See, here's the problem too. Mike Mullis and I were talking about this with The Last of Us 2. Mike didn't play the Last of Us till later on, till it'd been out several years. And like you, Stubbs, you're just now getting into Halo. Sometimes it's hard. If you haven't gotten into a franchise and it's already been around for 10, 15 years, let's say, it is kind of hard to get into it. So some of these games, if you didn't get into it in the beginning, it's kind of hard to get into the lore or behind the characters. There's a detached feeling, versus somebody that like me that jumped in Halo day one, when it came out on the original Xbox, and played that for the first time, that's why I loved it. I played it on the original Xbox and I fell in love with it. I loved the original Xbox. It was, the console was awesome. It had that big Duke controller, and the buttons were a little lip shaped, which I didn't, but I got used to it. But the original Xbox had the hard drive, and I could take CDs, like my favorite music, and like Project Gotham Racing and some other games. You could actually choose which tracks you wanted and store those on your hard drive. And I could just sit back and race and listen to things like Aerosmith and Cinderella or Dawkins, music that I liked. And that was something real innovative about the first Xbox that I adored, But I like that console because it was simple. You had your games. It's just, I mean, I'm all for things moving forward and new technology. But like I said, there's something, the more simplistic, you give me a simplistic console that just plays games and at a high quality, that's sexy to me. I don't care about all these other bells and whistles.
No, you're right. I mean, it's like I was saying with Game Pass. The games I like or whatever, I will buy regardless if they're in Game Pass because I like owning them. I do. But and that indie, I've played a few hours on Halo 1, and I'll be honest, compared to a lot of the Gears games, I think Halo's hard. Halo 1, it's not easy.
Well, Halo 1's not easy, and there's parts of it. There's when you get in the Warthog at the end, and that Warthog floats all over the place. It's like a marshmallow, drifting on a high wind at sea, I mean, you get in that thing and you hit a bump. Anybody that's played Halo Combat Evolved knows what I'm talking about when you're in the Warthog. And then you got Halo 2, where you got the Covenant. I mean, you got the, whatchamacallit, I can't think of their names. Somebody help me here. The Flood.
The Flood, them little bloody
the
shitty
Flood.
little things.
Oh yeah,
In
those
Halo
bloody
1.
shitty little things. Yes,
I fucking hate them.
I hate them too. Those bloody shitty little things. And there's like little leaves. The Flood. I can't stand the Flood. That was like, I absolutely. I like the Arbiter. I thought he was cool. But man, the Flood. I can't stand those guys. Now, later on, when they got into the Prometheans and stuff like that, I didn't really care for the Prometheans as much. They kind of getting old with it. And then, of course, they made Cortana go crazy, and people thought, John was going to die, and, or be replaced. Nobody can replace Master Chief, so.
Well, congratulations, John.
Yes.
The longest Stubzcast in the records.
Yes.
You've now beaten Dreadpool.
I knew I could do it, and I'd still like a part 2 sometime. It's just amazing.
Yes, most definitely.
You're probably like, I got to get off with this clown.
But no, you've beat Dreadpool now. I will inform you.
As long as I beat Dreadpool, that's all that matters.
But no, I'm definitely gonna have to try and play Halo more.
You got to.
I was so into Gears, you see,
Right. The problem is that the earlier Halo games, like Halo 1, the controls, they're not, as they kind of evolved, as the game went on. Halo 2 is a lot better as far as control wise than the first one. But they all have their quirks. Halo is difficult, especially if you play like on Legendary or whatever. If you play on the tough levels, man, it's one shot, one kill. It's real tough.
Or easy mode like me.
I love playing on those hard modes, where you hide behind corners for 10 minutes, and finally you go pew pew pew, and you finally get the guy, and then you move forward another 5 feet, pew pew pew, just until you get through it. That's kind of what Halo's like on the hard levels. But if you play with friends, multiplayer, that's the way to go with Halo, though.
Oh, yeah, I mean, I've had people offer to run through it with me, so maybe I should take them up on it.
Right. Well, maybe when I get maybe we'll have to play some Halo Infinite or something. If
Definitely. Are you buying it so the developer gets the money?
Yeah, because here's the thing that I want everybody to know. Just because I'm critical sometimes of Xbox or Microsoft doesn't change the fact that I still care about them and I'm going to still support them. Sometimes you just, in order, if you want things to be better, sometimes you just have to call things out. And I mean, you can ask Mike or the guys that know me. At one time I was a huge Xbox fan, and I still support. But yeah, I'm looking forward to playing. I just my only fear is, like I told the guys on the show, I hope they don't change. Like I said, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's like when they redid God of War, and they kind of redid God of War to where you're kind of got that over the shoulder look, but they still maintain the old feel of God of War. The last thing I want them to do is take Halo and to turn it into some kind of Destiny game.
Yeah. Wow. Well, funny you should say that. They were hinting that it's going to be a ever expanding universe. So I don't.
Right.
It could end up being like that, but I would hope it would be a lot better.
Well, it wouldn't be bad as long as it has if they come out with Halo with an epic campaign. I mean, a long epic campaign, and they give a real good story. Then if they kind of went the Destiny route, I could see that being okay. Now, if they come out and they go cheesy on the campaign and they give some kind of half-assed story on Master Chief or something, and it's not jiving, and then all they do is do the kind of Destiny thing where they're adding on to it, because every great video game has a great story. It's like a book. And the thing about Halo, people love the multiplayer, but it's the story. It's about Master Chief. It's about Cortana. You got to have a good story with that game. That game is known for that. If like I said, if they go cheesy on the story and just do this, I don't know, game where they just give out a little content here and there, I don't know if I'd be happy with that.
Oh, definitely. I mean, either way, with Halo Infinite, they're not going to please everybody.
Oh, no. I just, Halo's, you got to be careful changing everything. If they turn it into like Destiny's good at being Destiny, Halo should stick with what it does best.
Exactly.
It's
like God of War. When I read that God of War nearly didn't happen, apparently the God of War you played, apparently they showed it off to Sony Studios or whatever they were called, and the first go of the game they made, PlayStation told them to go back to the drawing board and rework it.
Right.
So if that happened a second time, would you have seen God of War? Would they give up?
See, with God of War, they took a big chance because, and I actually, and I'm not just saying it, but I got the platinum on that game. I played that for hours. My wife played it and loved it. They actually took God of War and they molded it. They gave it a new look, but they kept that traditional feel. You knew you were playing God of War. They didn't change it they didn't try to reinvent the wheel. And that's why I think that's why it was so successful. You got to be real careful when you take a beloved franchise like Halo and you try to change it too much, because when they added those rec packs and Warzone and things like that in the Halo multiplayer, that's when it all got like a carnival game, I didn't like it. And they've even got the rec cards in Forza. I think they should take that stuff out of there. It changed the way the multiplayer was played in Warzone. It gave an advantage to the other team when you had rec cards, and things like that. Like I said, on NLG, part of what made Halo great, Stubbs, when you were playing multiplayer was one-on-one, Spartan versus Spartan. You had the same weapon setups. Nobody had an advantage. It was just, can you outthink? Can you outmaneuver the enemy? And that's what made Halo so good. And if they stay with that formula, I think they'll be successful. If they try to change it too much, I don't know.
Well, it's a hard one, isn't it? You just got to wait and see.
It is a hard one. Everything's got to change. They just got to be careful with it, I think.
Oh, definitely. You seen this comment Daz has made?
No. Let me see Daz. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So it's been a good conversation. Thanks for coming on, and I reckon we're gonna have to get a part 2 of this because I've really enjoyed it. I'm sure we could get into more stuff.
Oh, I've got, and more to talk about, but I know you've spent, it's late where you're at, and I know you got a family, but I do want to say congratulations on your wedding anniversary. My
Thank
wife
you.
and I send you our love.
Uh,
Congratulations.
Thank you. We're going to Zoom tomorrow.
Oh, awesome. And I want to thank everybody that's listened in and supported. And thank you for having me on the show. You've been a wonderful host. I've really enjoyed talking about games. You know, I talk a lot. I know they get on me on Next Level Gaming because I talk too much all the time. But, you know, it's just I get so excited, you know.
Definitely. Yeah. Thanks for coming on. Do you want to tell everyone where they can find you?
Right. Well, you know, Daz, you'll have to ask him about the color yellow. He's kind of hooked on yellow for some reason. It has to do with Mike.
That is Mike. That's yellow, not gold. Right. It's yellow.
Yeah, they're arguing over yellow and gold. Yeah. And, you know, I was going to throw in some other colors like canary and different things, you know, some other yellow lookalikes, you know.
Thanks, Mike. Cheers.
But yeah, I just thank you again. You've been a wonderful, and it's so nice getting to meet you and talk to my friends across the pond, you know.
Oh, most definitely. It's been very, very good show. I've really enjoyed it. Definitely. Right. I will see everyone in 2 weeks for the next Stubzcast. I'd like to thank you for coming on, John. It was very good.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. Loved it.
And I'll see you all soon. Thank you for coming.
Right. Thank you guys for listening.